It is the first episode of the monthly movie marathon, season 3, season dos or dos tres, which
is a callback from our last episode.
Yes.
So if you just think we're randomly speaking Spanish, thank you for thinking we're speaking Spanish.
You've not clicked on the Spanish dub channel of the monthly movie marathon.
Yes, no, we're actually talking in 2 different languages at the same time.
Because we're men of the world.
We're bilingual. Yes.
But yes, also 2023.
Yes, there is also that.
But speaking of the throwback, thank you all for listening to the 2022 recap, or the dos recap from last week.
Yep. Or as I'm sure everyone's had that joke. Last year.
You remember last year's bloody episodes? I'm like, I do. So thank you all for listening to that. Thank you for sending in your submissions for best movie of the year. That was a fun episode to record.
A longer episode than we...
Granted, we were like, it'll take an hour. And then 2.5 hours later, we were like, we should probably wrap this up. But it's it's a testament to how much fun we were having.
Thank you for listening all the way through.
Oh, yeah, I know.
We don't like to do things in halves. We're like, if we're going to talk about a movie, we're going to fucking talk about a movie.
And that's why the people join us
every
every month.
They do.
Or at this point, once every week, because this is the second episode. Right. You lucky ducks.
You lucky bastards.
And speaking of lucky ducks.
Yeah.
Not only do the people get to listen to us this year.
What do they get to do, Nick?
They get to watch us this year.
Hey.
On a camera. So sorry if it's not what you thought we looked like.
All of those times that we were talking about on... Oh, actually, I don't think we talk about it on this one. We talk about it on...
Pop Culture Essentials.
Where you can find us.
Yes.
So if you're following us, but for some reason you don't know what we look like, this is what we look like. I may look like a man, but I sound like this.
And I've got a face for podcasting.
Yeah.
So considering my reviews are all my face for 60 seconds, so apologies.
We might say sorry.
Yeah, well.
But at the same time, well, that's on you.
Let us know in the YouTube comments below. Yeah. Should we say sorry for how we look?
Can't wait for a great YouTube comment. You guys are always really nice.
So this is a little tester. It's a one camera setup.
Because...
We on the bougie.
Yeah.
We got a podcast bougie, and it does not account for 2 cameras at the moment.
And that's bougie in a French accent because it's budget.
Now we're multilingual. So look, if it sticks around, it sticks around. If you guys like it, let us know. But we thought we'd give you a little taste of our face for 2023.
Because I shouldn't be the only one tasting Nick's face.
Exactly. I wanted to share my face with everyone.
As he should.
Everyone's a little nibble, little lick here and there. What's a little nibble and lick between podcasters? Communities?
Well, that's a question for another podcast.
That's a question for another podcast. Yes. So leading into 2023,
yes,
the year that will be.
Yes.
We've got a stacked lineup of films. Huge year of films for everyone. But we should kick it off. We should start.
We probably should.
With January.
We'll start with January.
Which makes sense. And there's a little film coming out called M3GAN.
M3GAN.
Or M3GAN.
M3GAN as it's actually known.
As people will be calling it for the coming weeks. So M3GAN, a.k.a. M3GAN, is a little Blumhouse Productions film.
If you don't know who Blumhouse are, well...
They'd made pretty much every horror film for the last.
So we've got Get Out.
Yeah, they won the Oscar for that too. Halloween. Black Phone.
Invisible Man.
Insidious Chapter 2.
I love how he said, you should probably know who they are. We've just gone blank.
They made a lot. Purge.
Yes.
The Gallows.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that, everyone.
Out of all the fucking movies.
I was like, what have I seen that's Blumhouse? They were popular, or Jason Blum was popular for making dirt cheap horror films that made 5 times their budget back and then they would just funnel that into more films.
And now he's just become like he's become like an institution, really.
Ultimately, he's a juggernaut of horror.
Yeah.
But with Blumhouse making M3GAN/M3GAN, there is a story credit on this film. Not a script, not a screenwriting credit, not a directing credit, but a story credit for Mr. James Wan. James Wan, who is
he's
Australian,
first
of all.
Australian
director.
Yay on Australian X.
And he's also killing it, not just in horror, but in Hollywood in general. Speaking of, his production company, Atomic Monster, has now joined forces with Blumhouse to make like a horror super studio.
To take over the world.
Which is fucking cool.
So James Wan, if you also... Well, look, we'll actually properly have answers for this one because we're like, if you don't know Blumhouse, now, like, if you don't know James Wan.
That's fair.
James Wan started out... So Saw...
Yeah, was his first
The original
film.
Saw.
The original Saw.
He pretty much had nothing to do with the sequels apart from being like based on an like
like I think he produced a lot of them. That's about it. Yeah.
So we got Saw, we have Insidious. We have the first two Conjuring films.
But his fingerprints are still all over it. Yeah.
And then outside of the horror genre, people were like, let's give this guy a chance with, massive budget films. So he did a little thing called Furious 7.
Which is arguably the best Furious movie.
Yep.
And maybe the best Fast movie
and
too.
Aquaman.
And its forthcoming sequel, which comes out
December.
This year,
finally. It's been jumped around, but we're finally getting it at the end of this year. So, which will be also the last time we'll see Momoa as Aquaman, because we all know that the hierarchy of DC is changing, and not because of what
Dwayne Austin,
Dwayne Douglas Johnson said.
Oh my God, I forgot his name was Douglas. Real name is Douglas. Throw back to the Black Adam episode.
Yeah.
So James Wan is just prolific.
Yeah.
Like he is a name in Hollywood.
Tis.
And it's awesome that he's Australian, but obviously got his start in horror and still has his fingerprints all over horror. Now, for M3GAN, which is coming out in Australian cinemas
January 12th.
Yes, 13th in the States.
I think it's the 6th in the States.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Misinformation being
I think
spread.
so. I mean, it feels like a movie that should be released on Friday the 13th.
God, that would make so much more sense.
But
right?
I have a feeling it's January 6th.
Okay, so it's coming out soon.
Yeah.
And we thought, look, an idea was thrown around for like robot movies in my head. I don't know if I actually verbalized that to you.
I mean, you see a movie like M3GAN, and the most obvious comparison is the Child's Play series, because we have a killer doll. And you think, look,
of course,
the Child's Play, would love to watch those, but then it's like, it's not a Chucky film.
No, and I mean, if Chucky ever pops up again in the cinematic world,
We'll happily watch.
more than happy to do.
But then you look at that and you go, are there a lot of other killer doll movies out there?
Not really.
And then you think killer robots.
Yeah,
I mean,
but not in the same
vein. I will say,
M3GAN.
have you seen a movie called Chopping Mall?
No, Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall.
No,
so it's
but
about
you've sold me.
So it's about security robots. This is a movie from the 80s.
Yeah.
So the security robots are like very weird, like triangle, like wheel.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and they come to life and they kill a bunch of teenagers who have decided to like stay behind in the shopping mall.
Sign me the fuck up. I'm in.
And like there's one scene where like this chick gets her head like just like laser beamed and like blows up. It's great.
Fuck, I'm looking for that.
So yeah, if you want to see something fun, shopping mall.
Okay.
Aside from that, we were like, there aren't really a lot of killer doll movies that would make a substantial episode like that. You could choose a lot of different things.
No.
So we went James Wan,
but also James Wan horror movies. Except,
so
this is our most caveated episode ever.
So because we had already done the Saw, in leading up to Spiral, we watched all 8 Saw movies.
We did. And you can go back and listen to that.
And so we thought, let's not rewatch Saw.
No.
And then we've like the Conjuring films.
Well, in saying that, The Nun 2 is coming out this year.
Very true.
And it's coming out in a month where Inside Baseball, we didn't have a movie selected yet. So you may be getting the Conjuring movies this year.
But we just thought a lot of people, like Conjuring a very popular film.
Hugely popular.
So we thought, all right, let's grab...
That's a franchise in its own. Yeah.
So let's grab James Wan horror movies that are probably either like the ones that are lesser talked about,
known, but also more his.
Yes.
Like they have the James Wan stamp over them.
So we chose
Dead Silence, Insidious Chapter 2, and the thoroughly underrated Malignant.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, all you massive James Wan fans out there, will be like, where's Death Sentence? Not really a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a thriller. It's an action thriller.
And speaking of Death Sentence is underrated.
I think I think critics unfairly maligned that movie.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty fucking cool. It's it's literally modern day Death Wish.
Pretty much.
So
and not
it's
the
fucking
not
cool.
the shitty
Not the Bruce Willis
remake
that I paid money to see in the cinema.
Same.
Yeah. They didn't screen it. So I was
no.
like, oh, I'm just gonna
And
go
then when they
watch
don't
it.
screen something, you're like, is there a reason for this? And then you see Death Wish and you go, yep.
And then you look for whatever cinema has a cheap ticket discount offer. And then I paid and went and saw it. I think I saw it for like $6 at Cineplex. Not Cineplex. What's the other one?
I went to an event.
Huh.
We very well could have been in the same cinema.
Maybe.
Did you go on?
Actually, no. It was me and like it was me and just some old dude. So I'm like, it wasn't Pete.
I actually went. Well, there was actually people in mine.
Oh, really? No. I think I went at like a 2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh
session,
no,
yeah.
I went at
my peak time.
I went at an adult time in the evening.
I don't know people time. You senior citizen. Fuck. I'm like, So Dead Silence, Insidious 1 and 2, and Malignant. Because they're James Wan horror films, he has story or screenwriting credits on most of them. And they just have his sort of print on it. Whereas also M3GAN, which I'm going to call it for the rest of the show.
That's fine.
Is being marketed as like from producer James Wan.
Yes.
As well. So his name is all over it.
Yeah.
That is the loose connection.
Yeah.
That gave us the excuse to go back and watch
And
these
to watch
movies,
these films.
which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So we'll crack straight into it with let us begin. 2007, James Wan's follow-up to Saw, Dead Silence. A young widower returns to his hometown to search for answers to his wife's murder, which may be linked to the ghost of a deceased ventriloquist. Now, when I say that synopsis to you, Pete, do you get excited?
It's intriguing enough.
I agree. I'm like, you know what? I could do a fucking ventriloquist horror film.
Yeah,
sure.
If done correctly, a ventriloquist horror movie could be pretty terrifying.
And dolls, like especially ventriloquist dolls,
They're creepy as
fuck. So I'm like, you got a bit of backing there, bit of foundation laid.
But then you watch Dead Silence.
Then you watch Dead Silence.
And you realize,
and you have
you done fucked up.
This definitely strikes me as the movie, because it was written by James Wan collaborator
do you know about
Lee Wanell.
Do you know about the script, the problems?
No, okay, so I'll give my theory.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a theory, but it strikes me as like Saw was a success.
Yeah.
And they just had Dead Silence, which they had already written, and they were like, we'll just sell this one, it's cheap to make. But tell me about this.
So Lee Wanell,
yes,
who often collaborates with James Wan, wrote Saw with him, and then obviously went on to write and direct
Invisible Man and Upgrade.
He has said that he is so disappointed with the way Dead Silence was basically ripped away from him in the studio process. He's like, he will never ever do a spec script again.
Right. Okay.
So he was like, I want to write a script and then
I'm going to sell that. Yeah.
Instead of this, which was basically
the idea of the film.
The idea. They paid him to write it. So he was like, he's so disillusioned. You can really tell.
Oh God, yeah.
That this isn't James Wan and Lee Wanell.
No,
I mean it's more James. You can see James Wan-isms in it. To me,
the directing wise,
to me, this very much telegraphs a lot of Malignant.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Actually, we'll bring that up. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you can tell that
it makes sense.
You can tell that this was like,
because it is very much so a cheap budget direct to DVD quality sort of thing.
But this got a theatrical release and everything.
It got a big theatrical release, and because they marketed it as the guys who made Saw have made a movie, and everyone's like, oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So Dead Silence on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics score 20%.
Yep.
Generous, to be honest.
Yeah.
Audience score 51.
Oh God.
But here's the thing, Pete. And I wasn't on Rotten Tomatoes at this time, but in the year 2007, I was 12 years old.
Fuck off.
And when I was 12 years old, little 12, 13-year-old Nick, I hated horror movies growing up. Like I had a genuine fear of horror movies.
Oh, you
but once I started, you fucking little pussy. So I inundated myself with them. I was like, I'm going to get over this fear and I'm going to watch a shitload of horror films.
See, that's how you do it. Scared of something,
You just face the fear.
Yeah.
And now I love horror films.
Good.
But I do remember watching Dead Silence and enjoying it because I didn't have taste in film. So it was one of those things where it's like, as a 12-year-old and you're watching like the creepy ventriloquist doll movie, which does have a fair few jump scares in it. You say that's a good movie. Because at that point in my life, horror was based on the fact that jump scares equals scary.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
This is a horror movie for
teenagers.
We'll say I was going to say I was just going to be like, this is a movie for dumb children.
For absolute dumb fucks.
That's a
Pete
fair.
says 51% of people are dumb fucks.
This is a fair assessment that I can see little tweens and then obviously
horror movie sleepover.
and then obviously because those are probably the people that either weren't allowed to see Saw.
Yeah.
See Saw. Or then saw
Yeah.
when it was available to rent. Because this is back in the day when you would rent stuff.
Yeah. Right. The video store back in VHS.
Yeah.
Saw on VHS would be fucking sick.
So
I'm
cool.
trying to source that out.
Yeah.
Anywho. So this is not a good movie.
It's not.
At all. Its two biggest like strengths. It's 87 minutes long.
Thank God.
It's a long 87, but it's 87.
Yeah.
And as from left field as it comes, I still enjoyed the twist. I was watching it and I was like, oh, that's wild. I don't think it's good for the story, but I was sitting there and I was like, oh, that's fucking wild.
It's very much like one of those things where they're like the twist, like it'll make everybody think this movie is like cooler than it is.
Yes, and I also think, especially now you've mentioned like the scripting issues like with Lee Wynell and stuff, they would have been like, hey, you remember that mad twist ending you did in Saw? Can you do the exact same thing here? Because if you were to play the twist of the ending of Saw and the ending of Dead Silence side by side, you would be like, oh, this is pretty much the same thing in two different movies. The way the camera moves around, the score, the way like callbacks are shown and revealed, the white flashlights.
He loves a fucking callback.
Loves a callback. So I will admit, as ridiculous as it is, I did have fun with the twist.
And I hadn't seen Dead Silence.
Right, okay.
And it was one of those things I remember wanting to see it.
Yeah,
and I just never got around to it. And then it's pretty fucking hard to find.
Anywhere.
It's not streaming. No. I'm pretty sure you can track down like a DVD or a Blu-ray copy of it, but I certainly wasn't going to buy this.
The rare DVD that would have cost you $37 to ship.
But I went into this knowing it had a bad reputation.
Righto.
And I was watching it and I mean, very early on I was like, oh, this is painful. Like, I like Ryan Quanten.
Yes.
And I think he does the best he can with what he's given.
I agree. Yeah.
He's like...
I think everyone in this movie is kind of like... No. I was like, everyone's aware they're in a real shitty movie and they do it, whereas Ryan Quanten is...
like, I'm trying to actually
do something with it.
So, I mean, we'll just say, like, it opens up with sort of a classic horror scenario where we've got, the young couple... and we know that something bad, like we know that shit's about to go down.
Because it's stormy night outside. Stormy night.
It's like this
blue tinge.
The blue tinge, yeah. And I mean...
Which is a staple of James Wan.
And for so the young couple, which is Ryan Quanten and... I can't remember her name. And she's pretty fucking awful in this movie.
Good news, she's not in it for long.
No. But they get a doll, like a ventriloquist doll delivered to them, but they don't know who it's from.
Yeah, it gets left at the door. Yeah,
and it's like, that is
creepy.
That's but they just
weird. They're like, oh, what a lovely little present.
They just bring it in. She then starts to play with it like
I've always wanted.
Like, and she's like, thinks it's like a fucking kid.
Yeah.
She's then puts like a pillow under her stomach to be like, oh, look at me. Like, it's fair. Like, I mean,
It's odd.
It's odd because I'm like, you're a grown woman.
Yeah.
And you're acting like a fucking like a fucking little girl. And she like, she sits the doll up on the bed and puts pillows behind it. I'm like,
she props it up.
I'm like, and it's like, and it's not like it's a cute doll.
No.
It's like it's a ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist doll.
But then, so naturally, we know, okay, this is going to go badly. Ryan Quanten goes out to get, I think, Chinese food. Is that what he goes out to get?
Something, yeah.
He comes back. Crime scene looking.
I will say this, though. The lead up to her death, James Wan does tension
He does tension well. He needs to lay off fucking music cues. I'll say that much.
Yeah, because he heavily relies on it in Insidious, definitely.
Yeah, later. But
yeah, I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
you know something bad's going to happen because he puts that, like, high-pitched, stringy, like...
And then you get, like, the shots of, like, the doll will be, like, behind her. She'll walk past the doll.
He loves a door.
And then when she comes back...
or a hallway.
Yeah, and then when she comes back, the doll's, like, slightly moved.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in any other situation, normal people would see the doll move and just go, fucking nut.
No, like, I'm out of here.
And everyone's just like... And she's just like, oh, I must have left your head that way. It's like, no... The doll's head turned.
Yeah.
And you
get out.
are so like enamored with this thing.
I love my doll. But like the build up to the kill is good.
And yeah.
And then all we see is her walk towards, and the way the camera like shaky moves towards the doll, I was like, okay, you're building up some good tension. And then it's just a shot of her under the sheets, and the doll doesn't have like a demonic face or anything.
No.
Just attacks her. Gets her under the sheet, and then it's her struggling under the sheet, and then Ryan Quanten comes home.
You can tell it's like...
It's a very lackluster kill for the build-up.
But you can tell it's kind of like an R-rated movie that they were like, nah, let's neuter this thing down to PG-13.
Yeah, I feel like they would have just gone PG-13 from the start.
Well, apparently there's an alternate cut that has a lot more like gore and stuff.
Because it is a very... And that goes for like all the kills in this movie. It is always a disappointing
and then like
climax to the build-up.
Because then like the reveal of their
having sex with me.
Well, then the reveal is obviously their mouth is like ripped open and their tongue's been like ripped out and
Which
stuff.
Is actually,
so
yeah,
the image,
that is cool,
image of their dead face is
fucking
cool.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're like, that's what happens to every single person. So after a while, you're just like, all we're going to see is like, oh god, their face.
I do like when we see I think it's one of the men who get killed, and they use that like old timey fucking camera to take the photo of him in the morgue. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of cool. Yeah. But I'm like, also, what era are we in? Right now?
But I think one of the things that like really, really pissed me off about this is that, and it's like in Insidious and in Malignant, it's like the reactions are much better. But in this film, like Ryan Quanten naturally is the main suspect in his wife's murder because he comes home, he's the last person to see her. He says when he comes home, he hears her voice because the ventriloquist dummy is like, all that sort of shit.
Which could have been used. This could have been utilized.
Yeah.
Like that is the best part, is like knowing that it's basically stealing
people's voices. Yeah. And he then is like let go because they've got no evidence, like nothing concrete.
They've killed.
But he's momentarily upset.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to him like I was like, you don't want to mourn? Like I get that in films they move things along.
But there's no like one scene.
We literally don't see him like break down. He's immediately like he's immediately talking about solving her murder, talking about doll. Like it's like, dude, like
you put pieces together way too quickly, and
your wife's just been like mutilated. Like maybe like we could have done like a, have him break down and then do like a 3 months later or something.
Yeah, right,
exactly. Like it's all you need. Or
have someone send something else to the door that would be like, oh, this is what's gonna progress the mission.
So like,
because then he goes and visits his parents.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Visits his dad and his stepmom, who is significantly younger.
Who's played by Amber Valletta, who, if you've seen What Lies Beneath, she is the ghostly woman who looks like kind of resembles Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's fair. Yeah.
Not the worst person to resemble.
So she's there. Ryan Quanten's like, you're not my real mum.
I will say it's weird, like when she opens, like obviously he says that, like when she opens the door and she's like, it's so great to see you again. You're like, who is this?
Who the fuck are you?
And then you realize, and how she's like, oh, I've never, and she's like, she never met him.
Yeah.
And it's classic exposition dialogue of like,
The
I know,
dad
like,
doing
of like,
it, yeah.
of like, I know that I married your dad, like all that sort of shit. And you're like, all right, cool. So she's the stepmom. And like, for everything that we learn at this point, seems like a lovely woman.
Very lovely lady. Always,
always standing behind the dad
for some reason with a hand on the back, but hey.
Which admittedly, you don't pick
up on that at all.
Yeah.
But then we learn, there's fucking daddy issues and stuff, and he's massive daddy issues. And
maybe that's why I like him so much.
Ayo, Quanten daddy issues.
I will say I've actually met Ryan Quanten, and he's actually like the loveliest.
I reckon he is.
Yeah.
I remember I was a big fan of him. Like when I worked at Blockbuster, and I would watch a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
And I was like, he seems like
he came to the Brisbane premiere of, is it Red Hill?
Yes.
Yeah. So he came to the Brisbane premiere of that film.
Fuck, that's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
That's a great movie. I haven't seen that in so long.
So he came to the Brisbane premiere of that, and I met him, and I said, like, I spoke to him about the film, and I said, like, I'm really, really excited for it. And I said, like, he's like, and I sort of jokingly was like, I'll give you a good review. And he was like, no, if I'm shit, tell me. And I was like,
man.
Oh, I was like, that's really cool. And I mean, just really super, like,
just a cool guy.
Super, yeah. So
we love Ryan Quanten.
We love Ryan Quanten.
Even though we don't love this movie.
No, but that's not Ryan Quanten's fault.
So there's this scene with his dad is so fucking long and it is so boring.
Yeah.
It's literally about 10 minutes of exposition.
Yeah.
Setting up the fact
just
of
like their relationship, they don't have a good one.
No. And then that someone a long time ago in their family had like a fucking curse on them or some shit. And that's when we sort of start getting the flashbacks.
Yeah.
They sort of begin around this time. And long story short, because this movie does not need to be told in intricate detail because there's not many intricate
details. We've already probably spent far too long on this movie.
Basically, in the 1910s or the 1920s, there was a ventriloquist lady
called Mary Shaw.
Who
also, I'll just quickly say the fact that they fucking recite the poem like it's something that like everybody should know.
I know.
It's very weird.
It's very weird. She was a ventriloquist and she was stealing little boys.
Yeah,
basically, and demonically stealing their voices, and it was to stay young, wasn't it?
It was to stay young,
something like that.
And what annoyed me about this, so I'll admit that scene, where she's performing to a bunch of to an audience, and she's got the ventriloquist dummy, Billy, I believe is the name.
Yes,
and the kid in the audience is like, it's fake. I can see your mouth moving. And you can actually see her.
Yes, little Henry. I wrote this boy's name down.
She's slightly moving her mouth. It looks like a legit ventriloquist.
Yeah.
But then she starts talking and the doll starts talking at the same time.
And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
But then they kind of.
As you find out.
But then they kind of just but they also then kind of disregard that and they're like,
it's weird,
because you kind of think, oh my god, the doll's actually alive, but then they go and be like, no, it's actually not,
because that's what I thought initially.
Yeah, I thought that too.
The soul of the last boy or whatever is like jealous that this boy or is angry, and I was
but then they were just like, but then I read about this film,
of course,
and they were basically like, no, she's just that good at being a ventriloquist that she's learnt to do both voices at the same time. So I'm like, oh, so this potential to even have the doll be actually alive,
right,
is just then gone.
So then it takes away. It's weird because it takes away a supernatural element that you could have had, because there still is a supernatural element to it. Like she is taking the voices, putting them inside of her, and she's doing the voices,
and she's like, and then she's like, and then there's like 100 dolls. Oh my god, out there.
I will say that
actually
that shot's fucking cool, and I know I will say this as well. Visually, there was a lot of cool stuff happening in this movie, and there was a lot of James Wan isms throughout. One of my favorites is after he buries the doll. So Ryan Quanten buries the doll. He's like, fuck this, which is the smartest thing you could do.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there's like a little ghost. He gets in his car. There's like a little ghost doing the classic run past. And James Wan does this really cool thing where every time a ghost runs past, it like crash zooms into Ryan Quanten's face,
Yeah.
but at different angles. And I was like, that's cool. It's got this like 1980s horror vibe to it. There's some really cool stuff happening there. But then the jump scare of the doll being at the window, I was like, that's pretty cool. Like it's effective. One thing we did forget to mention, because in that scene with the 100 dolls, there's a police officer with Ryan Quanten, played by our boy Donnie Wahlberg, who went on. Oh, he would have at this point already done Saw 2.
Already done Saw 2
with James and Lee. Boy, oh boy. So
Nick messaged me saying basically being like, Dead Silence is rough.
I was like, it's not easy to watch.
And then when I started watching it, and I messaged him, and I was like, Donnie Wahlberg is annoying the fuck out of me in this film. And Nick was like, oh, it doesn't get any better.
It doesn't get better.
And he's like, and I think as we said, everyone's aware that they're in a shitty, campy horror film. So he doesn't give he's going in. Like, he's always shaving his face.
That's what I don't understand.
I'm like, is this meant to be? I was like, is it meant to be some kind of like piss take on like old school like detectives who are always
I don't remember those movies where they're all like, it's an electric razor. It's like one of those just small ones where you just do like a quick buzz around.
Like, I feel like it's meant to be like you know how like detectives is always like so like disheveled and stuff. So like they never get any time to sleep.
Always shaving on
so
the
I
go.
I feel like in like old detective movies they briefly do that, but he's carrying it with him. Like,
and he does it at the most random. He does it like Ryan Quanten comes home. Johnny Wahlberg sitting there and like does the classic like detective in the lamplight sort of shit. And then he's just talking.
So he's like broken into. He's like in Ryan Quanten's house, sitting in the dark, waiting for Ryan Quanten to come home, and then starts shaving.
It makes zero fucking sense.
So and then look, spoiler. Johnny Wahlberg dies, as you expect.
Yeah.
And then naturally, and then they had to give us one final shot. So after we see his dead body, we see the razor like shaking on the ground. It's like
one last shave.
He's so bad in this film, but he makes it like morbidly entertaining.
It's like it's a so bad it's good.
Yeah, you watch him going, what is your choices here? And you go, did James Wan tell you to do this? Like,
this is a character choice. No, I like think Donnie Wahlberg rocks up and he's like,
nah,
I got an idea.
Yeah.
He's like, what? He's like, shaving. What do you mean?
All the time.
And they're like, well, shit, this can't get worse.
If you don't like it, you can talk to the studio. I feel like that was all right. That was all right.
Good.
That's probably more Mark than Donnie.
That's good. Right. So look, speaking of the 100 dolls, they ultimately find out that they have to kill
each doll
because she's inside of each doll.
Which is in questionable CGI.
Oh, very questionable CGI. But so Mary Shaw lives inside these dolls and they have to destroy them all. But the dolls fight back to an extent. Well, Mary Shaw fights back to an extent. It's a very lackluster finale because it's like you're watching dolls get shot and you're like, oh.
And then because like you're like, you only got so many rounds in your shotgun.
Could you imagine?
So then
I brought 100.
So then he's just like, oh, we'll just burn them. And you're like, there you go. So he burns them and you sort of think, but it's burnt and then it has like, there's like, Johnny Wahlberg's, he's dead. Ryan Quanten's sort of like walking out of this old house with like the fire and you sort of just go, I know that you want us to think this is the end.
Yeah.
But I know it's not.
But it's not.
Because we are then gifted the twist.
So
a twist that, yes, both of us, I mean, I certainly didn't see it coming.
I don't think the movie does a lot to make this twist
apart
obvious.
From the fact that like Amber Valletta stands behind the dad. Yes. But it's not and she's
retrospectively you can go sent Ryan on this mission to actually destroy the dolls.
Yeah.
So Mary Shaw can live through Amber Valletta. Well, basically, because she's a descendant, right? Is that what it is?
I think so,
I think, and if we're wrong, that's how fucking
we didn't pay
movie
attention.
Is.
Yeah.
Amber Valletta is also a ventriloquist. Oh my God. Who's been using the dad as a real life puppet with a fucking, I will say the shot where his back is like opened up and it's the stick that she's using and then you can see like her throat, like her mouth is closed, but like her throat is talking like a ventriloquist.
And I'm sure they would want it to be like, oh, now you have to go back and watch it and see. But you go, you don't worry, because then they show you all of the shots that she was in to show that she was doing it.
This is no Knives Out situation where you get more on a second viewing. Like this is like the twist shows you everything.
Yeah, they're just like, so just in case you missed it, because you probably did.
And
quick cuts, quick flashbacks, and you're like, oh my God, this twist. Oh my God, it's so incredible.
So fucking good.
The one thing that I applaud James Wan on doing in a lot of his films, he loves an unhappy ending.
He loves an unhappy and a big supernatural ending.
Yeah, so I at least applaud the film for
sticking to
the fact that, just because, we've had this twist where she's a ventriloquist and the dad's been a dead dummy the entire time. You sort of think, but Ryan Quanten will overcome this.
Yes.
He will destroy her.
Yeah. No. That is actually, now you bring it up, James Wan does love a tack, like not tacked on, but like this isn't really over sort of ending. Because I was literally just thinking then, like his happiest ending is Malignant.
Sort of.
Actually, I've written a note about the ending.
Okay.
Conjuring 2, where it's the I can't help falling in love with you ending.
Yeah.
But the scene just before that is that fucking great shot of just the chair where the old man ghost was sitting.
Yeah.
And it's just this real unsettling pullback shot. And you're like, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
So you're right. He does love an unhappy ending.
Yeah, because Ryan Quanten,
he
dies.
He dies.
And he's sent to a pretty horrible fate because he becomes a doll.
ventriloquist doll.
Yep.
Which is a pretty cool shot as well.
It's a cool shot when you see like his face done up with like the cuts in his mouth
to make his mouth move.
And then it sort of shows you all of his family, and it's kind of like Mary Shaw's she's finally like, I guess her vengeance has come to rest. She's like, this family is now destroyed.
The family who fucked over.
There was I read about there was an alternate ending.
Oh,
which pretty much it's the same. Like
that was a massive thing back in the 2000s. Hey, like alternate ending horror movies.
And it pretty much ends where this roughly the same. Like, but apparently you see, she's reading, like I think Amber Letter's like reading a story or something. And Ryan Quanten's like, I think you sort of see him like actually as the doll more so. I think.
Okay.
But
maybe they were keeping that for Dead Silence too.
Well, funnily enough, there was plans for more, but this film didn't do very well at the box office.
It did not do well at all.
No, made for $20 million, which was
that's generous, isn't it?
More
that's a
than
lot of cash.
And made 22 worldwide. So, which means in the States it did not.
No, it's technically a flop in it.
Yeah,
interesting.
In it though.
In it. Yeah, well, that's Dead Silence. I'm glad we started on that because now we get to jump up a level.
Yeah.
2010 Insidious.
Inside
of us.
Inside of you.
Fuck, that's a good movie. I love that movie. So, Insidious 2010, directed by James Wan. A family looks to prevent evil spirits from trapping their comatose child in a realm called the Further.
Funnily enough, that was the original name of the film.
Okay, I'm glad they didn't do that because the Further is kind of revealed like in the halfway through the film.
Yeah.
Insidious is pretty highly regarded. A lot of people love it. It has quite a stay within horror culture. Obviously, the infamous Darth Maul demon jump scare is like regarded as one of the best jump scares of all time.
Yeah.
It's a genuinely creepy movie at points. I loved it when I first saw it, and I really loved it again rewatching it.
And it's also like a success story in terms of how James Wan makes these incredibly low budget films.
Oh god, yeah, but so this makes them on like a massive scale.
This was made for $1 million.
Get fucked.
This was
really?
$1 million. Filmed
and Dead Silence was 20.
Filmed in like 3 weeks.
Shit.
So it was like, I think it was like March to April they made it.
Yeah.
September 2010 it premieres at Midnight Madness at Toronto.
And then everyone's all over
and then apparently within like a day it gets sold, like
Holy
for
shit.
its rights and everything. And then I think April 2011 it's actually like properly released. And makes like $100 million.
Wow.
So it's like So it's like as
you know what?
Genuine success story.
Rightfully so.
Because
this is a great fucking movie. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
You think it's
I think it's great too.
great?
Yeah.
Critics score 66%.
Which I actually understand.
I understand because it's a weird horror movie.
It's a weird horror movie.
It's not conventional in any sort of way. There's conventions to it, but
it does.
It's a grand idea.
Yeah, and it does sort of lean into sort of very like, you know, when we'll talk about it later, but when it goes into the further, like that's some weird shit.
That's some weird shit, and that's kind of what I love the most. About it.
Like it again, like this. A lot of this to me, Malignant. I can see so much of where he goes.
Audience score 62%. Which is interesting because do you know what?
Considering Dead Silence isn't much lower than that.
No, yeah. And it's one of those ones where I'm like, do people only remember it because of the Darth Maul jump scare? And I say Darth Maul because the demon looks like Darth Maul.
On rewatch was not one of the jump scares that I reacted to the most.
No, I can picture in a cinema for the first time watching it.
First time,
I get it.
But
there are some great visual.
There are two that
okay.
I've rewatched this film a few times.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times as well.
But there are two that always get me.
Which are
the face behind the crib.
Well, that's a great fucking.
And what I love about that is that you see it first. It's kind of like The Conjuring, where the woman's on top of the cabinet.
The cabinet, you do,
and you see it first, and then the music cue comes in later. So this one, he's standing right behind the crib,
right
and
over
Roseburn walks in, and then you hear the music cue, and she goes, "Oh my god, yeah." And then the other,
I do love that.
And then the other one is the walking on the.
Oh my
balcony.
god! Okay, so that's my one. That's my favorite jump scare.
That gets me every single fucking time.
And it's the same demon. Which is basically like he's like a bouncer. He's like a bodyguard, basically.
He kind of looks like a more human version of the Sinister
one.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
And that jump scare Pete's talking about, which is great. So Rose Byrne's in bed, and outside, out the window, the demon's just walking back and forth.
Which in itself is terrifying because at this point in the film, she's like, "There's something trying to kill us." Yeah. Like she's unhinged. Yeah. Patrick Wilson's like, "We'll be fine." Yeah, she's like, no, something's trying to like
really
get out,
fucking hurt us.
And she's there, and all you hear is just the footsteps on the balcony, and you see it walking from like right to left, and she's like,
and then when it does a left to right,
it does back, and then I think,
and then when it goes to walk back through,
it's in the house.
Fucking room,
and because like, it's because it like doesn't. I mean, it builds up to it, but it's like you only get him walking twice, and he's outside, and you sort of think, oh, he's outside. You don't expect him to immediately inside.
And then also the loud strings.
As we said, music is used a lot in this.
Yes.
Sometimes it's used unnecessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Where it's not used unnecessarily is the opening titles.
Oh, which so good.
I had I was watching this the other day. I watched this loud.
I watched this really loud.
And I was concerned for my neighbors, but this is also like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, oh shit, I turned up. But like, it's a great opening scene where we sort of get an idea of like the layout of the house.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome shot going down a hallway where we see the demon, the old lady in the veil, and the camera slowly pushes towards her. She's smiling. She's got like a little candle underneath her, and it cuts to black, and then it's Insidious in big red letters,
and it's like this
loud strings. It's horrific,
and it's like, and that sort of catches you off guard.
It does. It really does.
So you sort of just like, oh shit, I'm in for it now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on edge straight away.
I mean, and like this film is conventional in terms of it's initially conventional because it doesn't take long for the haunted house side of things to come into it.
Yeah.
And you sort of we've been sort of programmed to go haunted house. Okay.
Doors are opening, creaks and crevices everywhere. We hear voices, little boys laughing, little ladies whispering.
And like Rose Byrne does the smart thing of like, let's get out of this fucking house.
Yes.
Like she's like, I don't.
Because they've just moved in.
They've just moved in to this new house, and she's like, I don't like it. Let's move.
It's Rose Byrne, Patrick Wilson, and their 3 boys.
Yeah. 2 boys and a daughter.
Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, sorry.
So
it's a baby.
Yeah.
That's why.
Callie.
Callie.
I only know that because they say the name all the time. But yeah, so she does the smart thing of like, I want to move. I want to leave because by the time all this shit goes down, their son has fallen into what they're told is a coma.
Well, yes, because we see him as the audience go up to the attic. He's attracted to a noise in the attic. He goes to pull. There's a it's like set up earlier on where Rose Byrne accidentally breaks one of the rungs on a ladder. He goes to step on it, falls back, hits his head.
And I do like how that scene is done because he keeps stepping, and because you're not entirely sure which rung it is because
it's the nail in A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
you know it's going to happen. Yeah. You just don't know.
So he keeps stepping up, up further. He's trying to like pull the lever for the light, and then it's like he's just too short. And then he step up to the next one, and you sort of go, oh. So then he finally steps on it, and he falls down and hits his head.
Yeah, and
you sort of think nothing of it because he's fine.
He's fine.
And it kind of feels anticlimactic because you're like, oh, there's nothing happening in this. Yeah, nothing happens.
Not at the moment, no.
And then he just doesn't wake up.
Yes.
And the doctors are like,
there's no brain bleeding, there's no trauma.
He's in a coma, but we just don't know why
or how.
So it's eventually like they bring him home on have to have the tubes in him and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so Rose Byrne's already like, this house is basically like put my son in a coma.
Oh God, yeah. She's like, we need to fuck off.
But then more and more crazy shit starts happening in the house, and she's like, I want to leave.
Yeah.
And Patrick Wilson's like, well, I don't think we should. I think I think you're just overreacting.
Not overreacting, but like, he basically insinuates it without saying it. Yeah.
And then Barbara Hershey, who plays Patrick Wilson's mum, she comes in and she's like, oh, I've seen this before. She has a lot of dialogue that she says lines that no one ever really says.
It's like vague stuff. Not even Patrick Wilson is like, what the fuck's going on?
She's like, how do I know this? Because I've seen this before. Like it's very
on the nose.
Yeah.
And Dalton's on a feeding tube and shit like this. It's been like 3 months. They do a 3 months later cutaway.
See how easy it is to do a 3 month later cutaway?
And then he's like in a fucking full hospital bed.
Yeah.
And Barbara Hershey's being very cryptic. Weird shit's still happening in the house. We get the demon in the crib jump scare, which is great. Little boy running around, tiptoe in the tulips.
Oh, that fucking song.
Which is now kind of like, it's sort of synonymous with horror stuff. Like, because on TikTok, it's that huge. Like, if you're watching a weird, creepy video, it's tiptoe through the tulips.
It's awful to listen to because
now it is.
Yeah, because the voice is so like off kilter and
so there's all this weird shit happening around the house.
I will say, I only noticed it watching it this time.
Yeah,
when Rose Byrne's in the house and she sees the little boy.
Yeah.
Did you see the shot where he's facing the wall?
He's there. Yeah. I remember that from the first time I watched it. But there's so much of that in this movie. Yeah. There's so many just hidden.
Yeah, like it's great. Like she's demons, like it's before she sees him.
It's when she goes outside.
She's like she walks out. She walks like through the like the laundry.
Yeah,
and you can see, and it's like you're not. It's one of those things where if you don't see it, you don't miss anything.
No,
because the camera's like following her, but in the corner
of
the room,
who, when you do catch it, you go. Oh,
but in the corner of that room, you see the back of him facing the wall.
Little demon boy.
And it's one of those things where you sort of go, did I?
Yeah, what was that?
Like, and then she walks outside, looks in, and she sees him like
he's dancing in the
with
laughing
that fucking,
and
with
stuff.
That fucking, and then when she like goes back to look in the other window, he's gone.
Gone there.
Like it's
follows him around the house.
It's very, very, very.
Then
effective.
he's in the closet.
That's
a good jump
jumps
scare.
out at her
good
and laughs.
Fucking jump scare.
And this is when she's like, "Oh my god, I'm crazy."
She's poor Rose Byrne in this movie.
And
Renee.
And then we get Barbara Hershey introducing us to Lin Shaye.
Yes, because we get a little flashback about Josh, who's played by Patrick Wilson, about him potentially going through this.
So what we realize is that Dalton is able to astral project.
I fucking love that, to be honest. I'm like,
it's not just for the charmed witches.
No. Or just in Doctor Sleep as well, which is used really well in Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep, so fucking
So yeah, little Dalton can astral project. He is able to be conscious outside of his body. And we have been told, because Lin Shaye is a medium who can talk to him, he just thinks they're dreams.
Yeah.
He has no idea he possesses this power.
And it's like he's basically been like he's been doing it for ages, and he draws about it.
Yeah, little.
And then it's like, and then it finally like Patrick Wilson like looks at the pictures and is like, oh, how he's like, I had a dream where I like looked at myself and then I flew away and stuff. So he's like, so Patrick Wilson then goes, oh, he's been like telling me this the whole time, and I've just been too much of a dick to notice.
There's some little breadcrumbs laid early as well, because when Rose Byrne at the beginning of the film was looking through photo albums, there's no photos of Patrick Wilson when he's a child. And he always talks about the fact he can't really remember anything before he's like 6 or 7 years old. Yeah. And it's all laid these foundations down. And Barbara Hershey.
Yeah, and then when Barbara Hershey finally sees like it's the kids, Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson, and she just says, I can't believe you got him to pose for a photo.
Yeah, right.
And and it's sort of one of those like
what's going on?
And then like that line, and you just sort of just go, yeah, actually, like, because then at the beginning of the film, Rose Byrne goes, oh, there is no like photos of your dad, you know?
So we get just before Lin Shaye comes around, we get the scene, the Darth Maul demon in the background, where she's basically explaining, it's like, you were doing the same thing when you were a kid, Josh. Like we were so worried about you because you would go away in your mind for so long and things were coming back and we had the same sort of haunting. And she goes, I remember the demon, I remember what I saw. And Josh goes, what did it look like? And that's when she looks, and behind is the demon, and she screams and yells. And she's like, I fucking need Lin Shaye, who is a badass. Like, I fucking love Lin Shaye in this movie. She's so sweet.
Yeah.
She's so unassuming. And then she's like, but we're also going to fuck up some demons. Yeah. Like, I would love to see her team up with like Ash from The Evil Dead. Like, that would be a fun fucking team up. But then old mate, Lin Shaye sends her two boys, Specs and Tucker, Lee Wanell and Angus Sampson, Australian comedic legend, which just made me want to watch Thank God You're Here, to be honest. They are the comedic relief.
Yeah.
Which I will say, and we'll bring up in another film this episode, James Wan doesn't always do comedic relief well in his films.
No.
There are times where it works naturally, and there are times where it's incredibly forced. Specs and Tucker are on the cusp of both for me. There are things they do that I find their chemistry really fun. They do provide levity in some really intense scenes. It just happens a bit too much.
Yes.
Just a bit too much. Like everything they say is a joke.
Like if this happened in real life,
yeah,
you wouldn't be making any jokes about it.
No, God, no.
Like, you'd be like, can you just shut the fuck up and save my son?
We're trying to save this kid who's been in a coma for 3 months.
Like, that'd be great.
And they're just, out there, and they're doing like, I can't remember if this is in the second film, but they do like the bear, ninja, whatever, they're rock, paper, scissors.
That's the first film, I think. Maybe
it might be the second one, but they're just intentionally awkward dudes who are saying like the inappropriate thing at the inappropriate time. Angus Sampson's character, I think he's Tucker, that's right, because Specs is wearing spectacles, is always like eating a Hot Pocket sort of thing. Like, it doesn't always work.
No, like, it's one of those things where like one or two jokes well timed would really sort of nicely offset all of the shit going on.
Absolutely.
But they're always trying to go for
always
it.
On.
And it's just like,
But they do some cool shit.
Yeah.
Their technology is fun. They're using all these like spectral mediators, the 3000.
The giant elephant penis mask on Lin Shaye.
See, I fucking love that. But Angus Sampson is using the camera that has the color lenses. And when it hits the blue one, we see the twins. And I love, it's a good jump scare because they're just standing there in front of the camera. But then it's like cutting from one picture to another. and it's so sudden, and they're smiling, and it's like the movie Smile. It's an evil, gross, demonic smile, but it doesn't happen. It's not like a slow
It's like
smile.
they've
happens like that.
It's like like the natural act of your mouth going from nothing to smiling, and they've cut out the middle chunk of like
you doing
that, so it just goes from like that to that, and it's instant.
It's horrifying, but it's really well
done. It's effective,
And then he goes.
It reminds me a lot of Saw when he's taking the photos.
Yes, it
and
is.
It's like
and
the light, and you're just like,
and
you're like, I know something's going to happen. Yeah.
And then that's when they call Elise, Lin Shaye's character, because he's basically like, no, we need to fucking get Elise out here right now. The jokes are over. We got to get Elise out right now. And she's so bubbly and bright, but then she comes into the house, looks at Josh, and she goes, "You've grown up since I last saw you." And he's like, I don't fucking remember you.
And then all of a sudden, like all the little bit of pieces start coming together.
And that's when we sort of more go, oh, like, there's something fucked with Josh. Also something fucked with Dalton. But she gives my favorite line.
Also,
in the
the other original title of the film, There's Something Fucked About
Josh. There's something fucked about Josh. Lin Shaye gives the best line in the movie. And it could be taken as corny, but I think she delivers it well. And I quite enjoy it. She goes, "It's not the house that is haunted.
It's your son.
It's your son."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a cool premise.
It's a cool line.
To be like, and I know
it's
that's
also
done before.
It's also half of it is the tagline of the film.
Oh, is it?
The tagline for Insidious is
the house.
It's not the house that's haunted.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In saying that, she delivers it really well.
She delivers it really well.
I'm like, that's the point of it. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, we're gonna get into the fucking
because then you just like it doesn't matter where you move. This is always going to follow you. So how about instead of also, it's expensive to move.
Oh, God, it is not cheap.
Can we just talk about the fact that they've gone from one like beautiful
decent house,
to another really beautiful house very quickly? I was like,
and he's a teacher.
He's a teacher.
And she's a songwriter.
So he's not earning bank.
No. And he draws the jigsaw puppet on his blackboard at school, which I thought was actually kind of cool. I love that as well. Yeah. And then she's like a struggling songwriter who's trying to sell her music.
Unless because she talks about thank you for letting me have time off to write my song. So unless she's been like power executive and she's like, I've got all of this money.
She's a girl boss.
So maybe that's what's happened. Maybe. But
it's still expensive.
They've still gone from one great house to another.
With 3 kids.
With 3 kids in the space of, and also, one of our kids is
possessed by a demon.
Is in like a hospital bed that we'll just have to get that transferred over. Oh,
true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, and then his bedroom is huge.
He's not using it.
You know what? Fair. I was like, why are we giving the comatose kid the biggest
room?
Yeah. Anyway.
So this is when Lin Shaye sort of starts. She's walking around the house and she gets the feeling of the presence. We get the awesome scene where they're in Dalton's room and she's just looking up at a dark spot in the room.
And
she's like, don't turn the light on. Whispering to Specs, who's drawing,
which is really quite amusing to watch because I watched this film with the subtitles.
So did I. Yeah, did you watch it on Netflix?
No, I watched this. I watched this on the Blu-ray.
Oh, I watched it on Netflix. So I had those.
It was very amusing to see what they would. So there were some words that they would, and then the rest of it was just just indistinct chatter.
Because some of it you hear is like black legs, red. Well, that's blood, it. Whenever
it was it was like horns for feet, red face. But then when it was just like it was just an indistinct chatter, and I was like, all right,
cool. And he draws the photo of the demon we saw behind Josh.
Very well, by the way.
Very well.
From what she's describing.
Quick. Yeah. And then Roseburn's freaking out. She turns the light on. Obviously, there's nothing there. Yeah. But she's like, okay, we need to sort this out.
I also found that kind of rude. When she turned the light on.
Oh, I mean, it's her house.
Because Lin Shaye's like, don't turn the light on. And you can see that I'm clearly looking at something and I'm possessed by something. And Roseburn's just like, nah, fuck it.
But I guess she's probably just like, Roseburn is the skeptic, though, throughout this movie.
So when she's like, I want to hire this woman, you're like,
that's a big move for her.
Like, listen to her, Josh.
So this is when, I guess for lack of a better word, you can call it the seance begins.
Yeah.
And
the giant
elephant penis gas mask, which I fucking think is awesome.
It would be
the design of the room the seance is happening is cool.
It feels like, even though this is set, it would be set in like 2010 or 2011. Like totally, it feels like, and it's the same thing with Dead Silence. It feels like it's like built in this like 1980s or even earlier 19 sort of 50s. Like
it's almost like a weird mix of like Victorian era plus steampunk vibe.
Yeah.
Especially when they go into the further. Because then you find out that there is a generational curse that did happen in like the Victorian era.
Yeah.
But that's for me, like I'm enjoying this movie.
It's kind of a similar story to Dead Silence.
It's a very similar story.
Done so much better.
It's also a similar story to The Conjuring 2, and it's a similar story, and James Wan obviously has the things he likes, but he does make them interesting enough. I'm enjoying this movie up until this point.
Yep.
Then they go into the further, and I fucking love this movie. I think everything in the further is fantastic.
But I also think the further is where this film is probably really divisive.
I
feel like some people, like, I love it because I'm all for weird fucking horror movies.
And it's odd.
Yeah,
it's
like, fucking odd. Like the giant Darth Maul thing, like siphoning his nails on like a fucking
to like
old
a
school
rock soundtrack where it's fucking
but it's playing like the tiptoes through the.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's like on those big like gramophone things. But the
thing is, the further is their house. It's just in this different dimension or spiritual plane.
But I can see people up to this point being like, oh, it's like a haunted house, haunted horror. And then when it goes into the further, I can see some people going, oh, this is too much for me.
It's weird, Whereas, because it's quite scary.
And it's such a tone shift.
It's a tone shift. So it's Elise Lin Shaye going through because Josh is the most susceptible to this. They're like, you will come in because basically, they found out Dalton is astral projected, but he's too far away.
He's too far in
that
that he isn't sort of like aware of like that he's no longer dreaming. So he's just he's gone so far in
the third.
And they're like, because this is what Patrick Wilson has previously done. And as we found out, Lin Shaye says that she basically made him forget.
Yes.
Which is why he doesn't remember anything before he was 7 years old.
But he's still got that.
He's still got the ability.
The ability to do it. So Lin Shaye, Elise, and Josh go in to find Dalton. And this is when you find out about the murder that took place.
It's fucking creepy when like you see the family sitting up and like the kid shoots them and everything.
And it's fucked as well because they're moving. They're still, but they're moving like they're frozen, and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
It's so well done. But it's all these other lost souls in the further as well. So as they're trying to walk through, they're just walking around. There's just all these ghosts, and not all of them are evil, but it's still creepy that they have to go through this. They find this demon's lair that Dalton is at the moment, and he's sharpening his fucking thing.
He's chained up in it.
And I love the bit where he's like, Dad, be quiet. He'll hear you. And then he unstraps it. He's like, Dad, he's looking right at us. You. The best part is like you would expect him to be closer, but it's just the silhult of it standing in the fucking window.
He's still in his like little dungeon. It's literally an office. Yeah, because when he says
he does
Dad,
all his admin and shit in there.
He's like, oh, payroll.
Oh, fucking hell, taxes.
Because like you because we've also been like this film's almost like because we've had we'll just call him Darth Maul.
It's Darth Maul. He's Darth Maul.
Right behind his face. We've had the guy right behind the baby. We've had him walking into the house.
Yeah. When
he says Dad, he's looking right at you. You do expect Patrick Wilson to turn around and to have it be like right there.
Yeah.
But he turns around and
it's just menacing.
And he's just looking at so it's not like a jump scare.
No, but it's creepy.
It's just creepy because you're like, oh, you're fucked.
Ugh. And while all this is happening with the fucking seance and stuff, like the demon is communicating out, and I love Specs writing in the fucking book.
Oh,
it's like, I will rip your innards out,
like fucking whore
bitch.
And all this. Yeah. It's like, oh,
this is very creepy.
This is angry.
I've written down here as well. I forgot what moment this is, but the bodyguard bouncer demon licking Roseburn. Creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah.
The frozen family. The string music is all playing. And I just love the set design of the further because it is so weird. It is that Victorian steampunk sort of thing. And there's smoke everywhere, blue lights, red lights.
Done for $1 million.
It's crazy. Like, it's obvious that they're like, okay, we've built this set. We're going to use it for real world and the further. But it's an awesome fucking concept.
Yeah.
And then they get Dalton out. It takes them a long time, but then, Josh manages to get him home.
See, this is where, when this happened, like Josh came back, like Dalton comes back and Josh comes back. And this felt to me, another thing, this felt kind of anticlimactic because he's just like, basically he's just like, leave me alone. And then that's what does it. Yeah. And you sort of think, nah, there's got to be more.
Yeah, he's shouting, because we find out that all in all, it's this lady demon that we see at the beginning of the film.
She's a lady.
She's a lady, you see. I'm a lady.
Wearing frilly bits and shit.
She's behind all of this. Like, she's the one in control, and she's been trying to latch on to this family forever. And then, Josh, Patrick Wilson's like, leave me alone, stay away. Boop you on the nose. Get away. And then they get out, and then Josh isn't acting weird per se.
I love this ending.
This ending's fantastic.
And also, this is why I really wish it just ended with Insidious.
Okay, we will definitely talk about that. Yeah. In this, and Lin Shaye kind of thinks there's something happening. Josh touches her at one point,
so he hands her something. Is it the camera?
She picks up the camera later. I can't remember what
he hands her something, and she looks at his hands, and then she like, and you don't see it because we get a really good flashback. We get
flashbacks.
So she looks at his hands, and then she looks at him, and she's like, she just has this look of like, I know that this is
something wrong here. Yeah.
And then she
bends down to pick up the camera,
and she does it, but she's doing it very like subtly because she knows that I don't want to like spook him.
Yeah.
And he's acting very like
nonchalant.
Dalton's
back,
and then she snaps a photo, and he gets angry.
He flips the fuck.
He's like, why would you do that?
He flips out so much that he strangles her to death. And then Rose Byrne comes in.
They basically don't really hear any of this.
No, they don't,
until like he's yelling.
Yes, that's right. She runs in, and she walks in, and Lin Shaye is dead.
He's like frozen.
Like frozen dead. And the photo is picked up. Rose Byrne looks at it, and she's like, oh my fucking God. And then flashback to 2 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Where
you see Patrick Wilson's hands are like old,
decrepit, blue crusty,
like fingernails and all that sort of stuff.
The dark fingernails. Yeah. And then Lin Shaye takes the photo, and when she pulls the camera down, it's the old lady demon.
The old lady who's basically now possessed
Josh. She's attached herself to him. She jumps at the camera.
And then Rose Byrne keeps like looking at it in that, and then she turns around and you hear Patrick Wilson's voice.
That's right. Yeah.
Kind of like, Renee, like, are you okay, sort of thing. Yeah. And then she just and then it goes Insidious again. Yeah. So this is like James Wan committing to an unhappy ending.
Yep. And you know what? Fantastic fucking ending. Brilliant ending.
I loved that the way it ended.
Yes.
Same. And it was kind of inevitable that we were going to get a sequel.
Well, when you make literally 100 times your budget back, it makes sense.
So
2013.
2 years later, we get Insidious Chapter 2.
Yes, Insidious Chapter 2, the Lamberts, which are the family from Insidious Chapter 1, right, which we didn't say that last week.
No, yeah.
The Lamberts believe that they have defeated the spirits that have haunted their family, but they soon discover that evil is not beaten so easily. So, Insidious Chapter 2, do you want to have a crack at the critics' score?
I actually know this because I wanted to see if people agreed with. I think it's like 44.
38.
Oh.
38%.
Wikipedia lied to me.
And audience score is 57. So this is not as beloved as the first film.
And it shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be. Because the biggest problem with Insidious Chapter 2 is that it's the exact same movie as the first. Except it's longer and way less tense.
Yeah. And like the whole opening is like we actually heard all of this.
All of this happened, yeah.
So it was funny. When we were talking about, because initially we were just going to do Insidious, Malignant, and Dead Silence.
Yeah.
And then Nick was like, oh, maybe we should do Insidious Chapter 2.
And you were very...
And I was just like, I fucking hated this film. And Nick,
you were like, I remember liking it.
And you were like, oh my God, this is going to be so exciting if like I still like it and you still hate it, because it'll probably be one of the first times that we've really like clashed on something.
Yeah.
And so I remember I saw this in the cinemas.
Yep.
I saw it once.
Yep.
And I just remember going, like, being just bored.
Yeah,
fucking hating it. Yeah. And I was like, I never actually want to watch that movie again.
Until who would have thought 10 years later?
Yeah, actually. And so I haven't seen Chapter 3.
I have, and I've seen The Last Key.
I've seen The Last Key.
Yeah, that one was rough.
That was rough.
That was rough.
I've heard Chapter 3 is better.
Chapter 3 is better than 2.
Okay.
But it's nowhere near as good as 1.
No, I didn't.
Chapter 3 is a bit more...
Because I know it's Dermot Mulroney.
Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah.
And it's got a bit more originality. To,
Okay.
Like, it feels like an original Insidious story.
Right,
But
okay.
it's still obviously
I'm
connected
kind
to
of
the
like, I'm
franchise.
kind of keen because...
And the 5th one's coming out with Patrick Wilson directing.
Because the 5th one is a technical sequel to Chapter 2.
Two.
Yeah. So in the timeline, Insidious 1 is actually the third...
Technically, yeah.
Is the third film.
Yeah.
Because 2 is... Because 3 and 4 are...
Before
Before...
the prequels. Yeah.
Anyway. So... I was a bit like, oh, this actually might be exciting to watch.
To rewatch. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And Nick messaged me and was like, oh, this...
I don't...
He's like, I don't remember. He's like, this is so much worse than I remember. And so then I was like, I feel justified.
Yes. No. It's not it's not an unjustified hatred of this
And then
film.
I started rewatching this and was like,
I will
oh,
say,
yeah.
I think I enjoyed it more than you did, but I don't think it's good.
Yeah, I still very much...
Because I will say there are still 2 elements of this movie I really like. I think the digital video stuff that they do when they're walking around, I was like, okay, that's cool for Insidious. Found footage it's not been invented for this film. It's been around since Blair Witch, but they use it well in this movie. Yeah. And I thought, how fun would it be to have like an Insidious style spin-off that's like short films of like Specs and Tucker's footage. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I still love everything in the further. And I like how they tie this into the first film, but it takes way too fucking long to get there. So this is what I would be like a great short film addition to Insidious Chapter 2, but it's the same fucking movie.
Yeah. I was still...
We even get a new Lin Shaye, even though Lin Shaye's in this film with Carl.
And it's clearly Lin Shaye's voice for the younger version.
Yeah, so it opens with the flashback
So the flashback that it is, I was like, this is like, we were told this. We know, like, it's, we don't need to see this.
It's Elise talking to a young Josh about...
Who's been recast,
Who's
by
been
the way.
Oh, yeah, he was too. Yeah. About going into the further, we get Elise saying that we'll make him forget about this. Insidious Chapter 2. Bah!
Yeah.
Then we get Rose Byrne being interviewed by the police as a recap for the whole first film.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we've already wasted 10 minutes of this movie.
Yeah. And obviously the cop's like, if we find your husband's fingerprints on Elise's neck, then
he's getting charged with murder. Yeah.
And it's weird because she's like, no, I believe my husband. And you're sort of like, was there like, obviously we've missed moments where you turned around and looked at your husband in a very freaky, because I was like, what?
The movie then goes back to that after the flashback. It's Renee, are you okay?
Yeah.
And he's completely normal.
So it's
but
like,
we've just heard him yelling.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? It's like, well, what the fuck is going on at this point?
The way he like presents himself, the way he holds himself is very different.
Oh God!
Like at one point he's like, "Come on, son," and she's like, it's like in horror. I've spoken about this. It's like in horror films when little kids, call their parent like a different name, and the parents just like, and you go, "Your kid is possessed."
Just get rid of him.
This is when you go, Patrick Wilson is possessed, and you've literally just gone through a whole movie where you know possession is real.
Right?
So the fact that she's a bit like, I believe my husband.
I'm still skeptical. It's like, no, you're not.
You're not skeptical. You're a fucking idiot is what you are. Sorry, but you are.
No, you are. You are. It's poor writing. It's fucking terrible writing. I don't know what...
I don't have a lot to say about this film because
it's just retreads.
It's literally the first film.
It's the first film, and ultimately what they're trying to do now is get the demon out of Josh.
Yeah.
Like that's Specs and Tucker get a bit more to do in this film.
Yeah.
Obviously, because they're mourning the death of Elise. They go into a reading room and they find out more about this lady demon. And then they contact Carl, who's Elise's friend. Carl. And he's like, yeah, there's something wrong here with Elise's death. We need to figure out about Josh. So they all go into the further and they find out this old lady's attached to Josh. So it becomes about getting this demon ripped off Josh, who's obviously being fucking creepy throughout the whole film.
There was so much dialogue that annoyed me in this film.
I will say Patrick Wilson looks like he's having a shitload of fun being like the creepy possessed guy. I believe
so, yeah.
But it's just so fucking annoying that it's not only is it like a retread of the first film, but there's so many repetitive moments in this film.
Yeah.
Like someone tries to fight fucking Josh and he destroys him because he's got demon strength. That happens like 2 or 3 times throughout the movie. I will say when they're contacting Elise with the dice, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Like it's fun.
But then that led to like a really annoying dialogue scene with Barbara Hershey when it was like
poor Barbara Hershey getting lumped
like
with the exposition.
The angels or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
and they're like, angels? What does that mean? And it's like, it's angels. And they're like, how do you know?
Hospital.
And then it's like, how do you know that? Well, that's because I used to work there.
Yeah, the hospital.
No one says that. It's
The song that they used this time around though is "Row, Row, Row Your Boat."
Yeah,
because lullabies are creepy.
Although
nursery rhymes are creepy.
It's not nearly as creepy.
Nowhere near as creepy as this one. The stuff with in the hospital is like too short in the movie to give a shit about. Like obviously when that old man dies and she's in the elevator with him, she's like, why is he walking around? Oh my God.
She walks into the elevator and he's standing there, and then it's not until she's like standing next to him that she goes, what are you doing? I was like, you walked in and saw him.
I know, like face to face with him before you were
And then she stands there and goes, oh,
what are you doing here? I think he's like a Lenny or some shit.
And then she's like, why is he walking around? They're like, no, what are you talking about? Yeah. He died this morning.
And so he was, and then you find out he was going to the further. He's a lost soul who's going to the further, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can deal with that. And then basically you find out that this demon has attached itself to Josh because just like Dead Silence, wants to stay young forever. And so he's talking to himself in a mirror and the demon's like, you have to kill your family. And he's like, I don't want to kill them. He's like, but we'll stay young forever. He's like, okay, I guess. So
I think the takeaway is like just age gracefully.
Let aging happen.
Yeah.
Let the wrinkles come through. Let the grays pop through.
Ease up on the filler.
Hey. And don't get possessed.
Look how great you can look at my age.
And look how, if you don't look after yourself, you can look at my age. That's when we see some of the digital video footage that I thought was like kind of fun. I don't mind the string and cup communication with the ghosts. It's a cool element. But like everything, there's so many underdeveloped cool ideas. Like it's all underdeveloped basically. Then we go back into, once Carl fights Josh, and we find out like, oh my God, he's got fucking demon strength.
Again.
They go back into the further because they're like, okay, this is what we have to do. Like Josh is stuck in the further because the old lady has possessed him.
Yep.
So they're basically going to find Josh in order to get him so he can kill the demon. And that's when we find out that everything that's happening in the further, because the further has no place in time, is happening at the same time as the first movie.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
That's like a cool element to be like, oh, okay. Like
this is the way to tie it in and like the idea of like you can manipulate your time in the further to do those things. Like I thought was cool. And we get to see like other sort of, elements of what was happening during the first film. I did write down Elise returns like Gandalf. Like Gandalf the White. She comes like, and it's like this magical reveal of like, oh, we can communicate with her in the further. But I did think it was an all right way to bring Lin Shaye back. I'm like, if you're going to go into the further Lin Shaye's dead, use her.
But I also feel like it's annoying because like her name comes up in the credits.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
so
she's like credited like third or something.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like, so we know she's coming back.
You know she's popping up.
Like it would have been cool to not credit her at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then at the end have like Lin Shaye as Elise sort of thing,
true,
you know? Like that way.
Yeah, and
that way we're like, we were like, oh my God, she's back.
It's like when they put Val Kilmer in the Top Gun Maverick credits. You're like, I would have loved to known he's not in it. Like I know it was spoiled before the movie came out, but I would have loved to know not known. So they can traverse through the further and it's kind of cool. And they use Lin Shaye and they save Josh to an extent, kind of. I did write down, I love when he fucking throws the saucepan at Renee's head. I lost it. I was watching, I was like, holy shit, like that's violent.
I love James. I was like, that's something that I like a lot about in Malignant.
Yes.
When certain things are thrown.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like also, if you were in that situation and you saw, you'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna, like, because frying pan would hurt.
The fucking saucepan in her head. They get out of the further. We get a setup for Insidious 3 because there's this mute character that has some connection now to Josh as well. And we see
a little baby Jenna Ortega,
who is young in this film. I don't know when she was. I think she's 20 now, isn't she?
I think she's
like 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah, because from what I understand, because of all of my deep Scream diving.
Yes, of course.
The beginning of Scream, there was part of it, she was 17.
Right.
And then she turned 18 and they could keep her longer.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to say she would be, so
laws.
Scream was filmed in 2020.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to say she would have been about 9 or 10 in this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So she pops up.
Yeah.
She's the daughter of this family who are getting visited. Is it Josh who visits them? I can't remember. For some reason, I've put a lot of this movie out of my head.
I think it is.
And then, this lady has the key. She's able to access, and then that's set up for Insidious Chapter 3. Because, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't watched Insidious Chapter 3 in a while, that character in the wheelchair is the main girl in Insidious 3. So it's a prequel about how she became the way she is.
Right. Okay.
It's all connected.
Right.
So Insidious Chapter 2 is not great. It's quite a disappointing follow-up from an awesome movie.
But I was also just like, oh, I'm so glad that my first thoughts were correct.
Yes. And I
just remember, like, I was like
not liking it.
And like not liking it. I'm like, oh, they're walking around a house again.
Yeah, totally.
It's just a lot of that.
A lot of that shit going on. Now, finally, we get to the meat of this show in the most literal way, because outside of Saw, this is probably James Wan's most violent movie, easily. 2021, I was pumped for this when this movie was announced, because I'm like, I don't know anything about it. It's another James Wan horror film. This is after he's done Furious 7, Aquaman. He's producing DC
projects. His return
to horror. And then it got slapped with a fucking R rating in Australia, and we were like,
sign us up.
2021, Malignant. Madison is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens after she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities. So, this unfortunately did not get a media screening.
No,
in Brisbane. We were sort of in and out of lockdowns and stuff.
Yeah, so this was another one of those HBO Max
same day releases
as cinemas. Its box office was massively
underwhelming.
Its R rating in Australia pretty much cuts out a massive audience, which is also why there are very few R-rated films that get media screenings.
Yes.
We've had a few of them.
Wolf of Wall Street,
Mortal Kombat.
Babylon is looking like it might get an R rating.
Hateful Eight.
Yep. Movies that are kind of guaranteed to make cash regardless of the rating.
Like Tarantino, Scorsese, DiCaprio, Margot Robbie.
Mortal Kombat is like
those movies
without saying. Yeah.
But Malignant, but I was like, I can understand why they didn't with Malignant, because also it was in the middle of a time when people weren't like going to the movies as much, and it was an R-rated horror film. So it's like, and horror is already kind of one of those genres that Australia sometimes doesn't turn up for.
We don't always turn up for.
But I remember seeing the trailer for this and being a bit like, oh, I don't know if I like the acting choices that I'm seeing in this trailer, because Annabelle Wallis does a lot with her eyes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
As we can see from this poster, right? I'm like,
So I was a bit worried, but then I was like, before I saw it.
Yeah.
And I sort of heard that James Wan was like, basically it was his like love letter to like
giallo
horror. And I was like, oh.
It's like a 70s, 80s Italian camp horror.
If you watch Malignant, knowing it's going for this like campy over the top,
very heightened horror
thing,
film,
then you'll have a fucking ball. If you watch Malignant thinking it's just a straightforward horror film, you'll be like, these acting choices
what
are
is
strange.
happening right now? And why are these things happening in the film?
But
why
if you
is it happening
see,
this way?
if you see Italian horror films,
you know how ridiculous it is.
You'll get it. So
someone who did get it were the critics.
Yeah.
So it's 76% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And I think justifiably so.
Yeah.
I think I do really enjoy this movie. Audiences had the issue which you just explained because it's at 52%.
Yeah, I can understand why.
It's similar to Insidious in a sense of like, I think James Wan has a very specific, when he's directing especially, has a very specific style of horror. It's elevator's wrong. It's heightened, it's ridiculous, it's wacky, it's absurd. It's darkly funny.
Yes.
Which is the biggest issue I have in this film, is that let the camp do what it needs to do. You don't need a comic relief character.
Right.
And I think we both know who I'm talking about with the comic relief character. Winnie, the forensic chick.
Yeah.
Which is also James Wan's wife.
Yes, yeah.
Who also wrote the script. So there we go. So he's got a story credit here. His wife wrote the script and he directed the film. So 76% I'm more in line with, and I agree with you. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay. Like up until the twist, I was like, sorry. Up until the twist, I was like, okay, no, it's good. Like I'm not 100% clicking with it. Then the twist happened. I was like, oh, this is fucking wild. Like, okay, I'm really on board with this twist.
This is like if this is like Orphan First Kill sort of twist.
Levels of twist.
Like,
Yeah.
Orphan First Kill up until the twist is a bit like
whatever. And then
this film is at least like I'm intrigued because whatever the fuck is happening is wild.
It's weird.
The violence is next level.
And it's on your first watch.
Yeah.
It's not explaining that much to you.
No, not at all.
Then the twist happens.
Even though we will say, even though the title is pretty much giving away.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
this is my note because this is my first time rewatching it since the cinemas.
Right.
I haven't seen it since.
Okay.
I had immensely more fun watching it this time around.
Yeah.
I fucking loved this movie. But this movie is screaming its twist at you the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
Like every fucking line of dialogue, it is like, no, we are giving you the twist.
It's talking about like we've got to cut out the cancer. We're talking
we
about
see Gabriel
through
the curtains in the first 2 minutes of this movie. But it's so well done in the sense of like, oh, it's just this disfigured monster.
And it's like, and I remember when I first saw it, I was like, I thought, oh, maybe it is her. But then I thought, no, it can't be.
It can't be because she's there watching it happen.
She's watching it happen. So it's very
she's
clever.
Seeing these murders happen.
Very clever how it's done.
So the beginning before the credits, and I have a note about the credits too, but the beginning before the credits is where the camp is established.
Oh,
it's like a British doctor.
Right off the bat.
It's in a fucking, how many times can you trust a medical institution that's a fucking Transylvanian castle on a,
this is
on
like
a cliff
House on
face?
Haunted Hill sort of shit.
We've been trying to cut out the cancer. Like, it's time to cut out the cancer.
It's very
this malignant tumor, blah, and it's just super over the top. They go in, the doctor's like, they're all like gearing up for surgery.
Cut out the cancer.
It's so fucking campy. So it shows its cards early on. I give it credit for that.
Like if the opening, from the opening, if you're like, oh, this feels too much, then you're like, it's only going to get
it gets more chaotic,
worse
more campy, more fun.
Yeah.
We get they snap the orderly's arm as well, so like his bones out, there's blood everywhere. So you know that this creature is violent.
This film loves a good bone snap.
Loves a good bone snap. And then Gabriel's like talking to them through the radio and stuff. So cool. It's really fucking cool, and it's a hell of an intro. James Wan loves a loud, visceral opening credits scene. It's this fucking rock song.
It's like
that's playing with all this like bacteria footage and surgical footage,
and it like leans into like the 80s like synth kind of like the
does.
Score for this is very like
80s
like it's like the guitar like the wah wah wah.
We will talk about this. Should we talk about the specific main theme of this song? Because I only picked it up on this second watch.
Okay, yeah.
Which is again screaming its twist at you.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to it, I'm like, I know this fucking song. And it keeps playing this like, and I was like, but it doesn't commit to the end bit.
Yeah.
of Where Is My Mind by the Pixies. So I was like, which of course, if you don't know that song, it's the end of Fight Club. It's like once you reveal that Tyler Durden and the narrator are the same person, Where Is My Mind plays. So it plays the first few notes of it, but then goes into its like normal score. And it was annoying me. And I was like, that's fucking where, and I was like, you son of a bitch. I was like, James Wan, you motherfucker. Again.
So he's
screaming.
So he's saying, where is my mind? It's like, we're saying these are the same fucking
person. So he loves the massive opening credits, the great score, really like visceral, loud images and whatnot. Then
like the two letters, when it's doing the credits, like the letters are connected and then they pull apart. And it's like, okay,
there's a lot going on.
But it's like not this movie. Like this movie has zero subtlety. Like it's like, I'm just gonna fucking throw everything at you, and yet we're still surprised when it happens.
Even the second time, I was like, when the twist happens, I was like, this is wild. Like this is a wild twist. We meet Derek. Fucking Derek. I will say, it's not great that domestic abuse is basically used as a plot. Absolutely. Yeah. It pretty much, yeah. Madison comes home. She's pregnant. She's been working.
Played by the lovely Annabelle Wallace,
who I love.
She commits.
She commits to the bit, and on that second rewatch, you realize how much she does commit to the bit, and it works so well.
Because I think some people might go, "Oh, she's just a bad actress." You go, "No, she's committing to how."
And she's not a bad actress because Peaky Blinders, in the short stint of that show she's in, she's fucking amazing. Yes, she's tired, like she's exhausted from working. Derek's at home just watching UFC, which I'll just say I watch a lot of UFC and I don't commit domestic violence. So
we will say
it's not a dead ringer
men
for
that watch UFC are not always
because I watch a lot of UFC.
Of domestic violence.
No, but this is what this movie is trying to tell us because he's just sitting on the bed watching fucking UFC. She walks in. She's like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't feel well.
She's like, I put a roof over our head.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he's like, you need to rest. You need to calm down. I don't want it to happen again.
Which is kind of funny how you're like, so you're telling her that she needs to calm down by like
yelling at her. But then he says, and this is another line that comes back later in the film, how many times do I have to watch my children die inside of you? Which is fucking brutal. That's an intense fucking line.
That's not what a pregnant woman wants to hear.
No, absolutely not.
Who's clearly suffered multiple miscarriages.
Yes.
Then also, when you realize why, you're like, that's super fucked.
Super fucking dark. Yeah. And then she bites back, rightfully and justifiably so. And then he grabs her by the chin on the neck and pushes her head against the wall, which leaves a fucking massive dent in the wall. So it's a hard push.
Yeah.
She's in pain. There's blood on the back of her head. He fucks off because he's a deadbeat son of a bitch. Yeah, so
who's like, oh my God. He feels like that sort of like, oh my God, baby, I didn't mean it. And then just is like relegated to like, you sleep on the couch.
Yeah, naughty boy. You commit DV. Sleep on the couch. Like,
you'll think about this in the morning.
Exactly. Which is why, again, like, this movie doesn't use domestic violence well. I will argue a movie that does use it as a good plot point, The Black Phone.
Yes.
Uses it for like an emotional stakes rather than
it's just a case of the reason why Gabriel is like awoken is purely because
through this.
So it's like, yes, I get that we want to show that he's a bad person, but I was like, it possibly could have
happened another way.
Like she could have
tripped,
but hey.
Because as well, he doesn't last long, Derek, in this film, because the next scene, he's preparing, he's going to bed, and in a shadow on the couch, there's a black figure. A dark figure.
I fucking love that when you see in the figure and then he turns the light on and the figure disappears.
Figure's just not there.
It's so good.
The use of shadows and darkness in this movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because that is where Gabriel is hiding this whole time. Gabriel, this demon who turns off the TV, makes the whole house dark. Derek's looking around. Gabriel, all of a sudden behind him, smashes Derek's head into the wall, which you kind of go like, justice. But there's something about this Gabriel guy I probably shouldn't be going for as well. Because
No.
he's obviously
And
killing
then when
people.
you realize like
Snaps
why,
Derek's neck.
Yeah, but then when you realize why you just
Why is
like
that?
you're like, oh, you purely did that because that's what he did to you.
To you, exactly. Yeah, because we find out that Gabriel is a very vengeance-orientated, or not even revenge-orientated sort of
And
guy.
Fucking like when he kills you, he fucking kills you.
He goes for it because Madison comes down. Well, Madison wakes up. There's blood on her head, blood all over her pillow.
Yep.
So she comes downstairs to find Derek on the ground with his head's been snapped. And the spine hasn't come out of the skin, but it's like lodged up.
Yeah,
It's gross. It's
fucked.
fucking gross. So it's a good kill. It's a great kill.
Yeah.
And then that's when we're introduced to our two detectives and the forensic chick who's way too thirsty at a crime scene.
Yeah.
Like she's got a thing for this detective, obviously.
Kakoa.
But she's very much like, oh, I can't wait for you to see this dead body.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I was like, dial it back a bit, Winnie.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta chill the fuck
Yeah.
out. It's used for comedic relief,
But
like I said, the movie's campy enough.
Yeah.
And it's darkly humorous and like absurd enough that like that works enough for me.
Yeah.
I don't need the extra.
Yeah.
It's the Specs and Tucker effect again.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the sidekick.
And it's like, or we could like, we would have been able to tell she's thirsty for him by like if he asked, like if he asked her something and she kind of just like, like if she kind of just like lingered on him a bit more or spoke to, or purely just spoke to him and disregarded the female agent. Like
Totally,
we get it, but yeah, she's very just like, are you about to like come at this crime scene? Because you
100%.
seem
She's
very into
She's
it.
ready to go. She's hot and ready to go. So,
And hey, I get it.
he's a good looking dude.
Kakao's a good looking dude.
He's a good looking dude.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he's got a name that sounds like a chocolate. It's great.
oh my God, does too.
Yeah.
Now I want some chocolate. Now I'm hungry.
No, I want some
No,
chocolate.
I want chocolate. So they take Derek away. They take the body away, and obviously Madison, similar to Dead Silence, is the main suspect.
Which, you know what? It checks out because as they investigate, they go, she has a husband who is known
Abusing
for
her,
abusing her. He abuses her.
Ends
and
up
the
dead.
the next morning, he's dead.
So you kinda go,
You look at it and
"Ooh."
go, I understand why they're going after her.
Yeah, totally.
But she's so bloody wide-eyed and that you're like,
I love him as saying, Then weird shit starts happening in her house again.
weird shit.
And my favorite shot of the movie happens, which is the bird's eye shot of her. Well, actually, there's a shot beforehand of her like shutting up the house because she thinks someone's tried to get into the house. So she's shutting doors and windows. She's like nailing boards of wood onto the windows. And it's cool because the camera will like pan away, but it's a different shot because she runs in from a different direction.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a cool montage. But then the bird's eye shot of the house of her running down the hallways and the way that camera moves around is fucking exciting.
The way that James Wan utilizes his settings, like he knows how to,
Oh, God, yeah.
like, yeah, move the camera about and like show us the surroundings that we're in.
You get well acquainted with where you're at. So I think that's a fantastic shot. We are then introduced, I can't remember if we were introduced earlier or not, but we're introduced to Madison's sister.
Who, if you thought Madison was leaning into the
campiness.
campiness, the sister
going
is
hard.
next
Hard in the paint on this one. She's great though.
She's great. She's great. She's having a ball. She's a supportive sister, but
And Madison feels comfortable enough to tell her, like, I'm seeing things. And then she goes, but it's all in my head.
But one of the
big fucking wink to the audience.
One of the moments that just completely commits to the ridiculousness of it is when they're talking about being sisters.
Yes. Yeah.
And she says, I'm adopted.
The adoption reveal. I love it because it is.
Because they make it out to
It's
be
like Bold and the Beautiful.
yeah.
It's like Young and the Restless style soap
so she
opera.
says, I'm adopted. And then it cuts to the sister's face. Is it Allison?
It might be Alison. I can't remember.
Cuts to the sister's face.
Yeah.
She has
Sydney.
Cuts to the sister's face, wide-eyed. Camera zooms in, music bellows.
It's so
it really
good.
is like a soap opera.
It's fucking brilliant.
It's so brilliant. And that's
It's a good reveal though.
It's like a good reveal because then you realize, oh, okay, so
But you also know Madison is known this whole time. Like, there is something
wrong. Yeah,
wrong.
What's
with
wrong
me. There's something-
with me?
So the adoption reveal happens, and then we get
hilarious.
We get a scene that the first time you watch this movie, you'll be a bit more like, I don't understand why this is in here until the twist. And that's the railroad tours.
Yeah.
So there's a lady giving tours in an underground railroad.
Which I found out is an actual railroad tour.
Oh, actually.
It's legit.
Because it looks fucking legit.
Yeah, it's legit.
So it's a lady doing railroad tours, and she packs up for the night, and then she starts hearing noises down the dark. James Wan he loves a doorway, he loves a hallway, and he loves a railway. And he's looking down the dark, and the camera starts moving real frenetically towards her, and she quickly runs to turn the lights on, and there's nothing there. And then she looks up, and there's Gabriel. Gabriel, who we should also describe, is all dressed in black, played incredibly by a contortionist because Gabriel looks like it's someone's back. It's but like the arms are pointed like forward.
Yeah. So the
walks. Oh, it's so fucked.
It moves. Yeah, walks forward, but walks as if someone's walking backwards.
There's like a Tenet start. That's what I was thinking. Like having seen Tenet now, I was the backwards action scenes in Tenet is literally just Malignant. Like not just, you know what I mean, but like there's a comparison that can be drawn there.
I actually want to rewatch Tenet.
So I rewatched Tenet late mid 2022 with Rhiannon. Watch it with subtitles because everything makes so much more sense.
I know I need to.
And I actually loved it.
When I saw it in cinemas, movie. I'm like, did I miss something here?
He drops an Oppenheimer reference in Tenet.
Oh, okay.
The Nolan cinematic universe. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Gabriel and has hair, like long black hair
covering his face.
Covering the face, moves. There's very agile for someone who is like walking basically on like dislocated bones.
Yes.
And wears like this long black trench coat sort of thing. So it's this real menacing sort of figure. Hence why Gabriel can also hide in the shadows and the dark and stuff. And kidnaps this railroad lady and locks her in
an attic
torture chamber. It's like up like the fucking Da Vinci Man, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's not the Da Vinci Man, but
Saw-esque.
Bit Saw-esque. And then using an award, fashions this knife out of it.
The award, like
it's such a non-thing at the time.
But again, showing you how ridiculous this movie is and that it knows it. The award is a knife.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's a knife that has I think it's got like a snake.
It looks like a snake
wrapped around it.
And it's giant.
Which is, I believe, because it's stolen from a doctor that is one of the doctors at the beginning of the film, Jacqueline McKenzie.
Dr. Field. That's Dr. I can't remember. Dr. Weaver.
Australian actress Jacqueline McKenzie.
She's incredible.
Who gets awfully killed in this film.
Oh yeah.
But
rightfully so.
The knife and the snake. There's like there's a hospital. I think it's in the US.
Yeah.
There's a hospital like logo that I think is like a nail and a snake.
Yes.
It looks like so.
It's
I'm like
similar to that.
So to me, I'm like, it's possible because she's a doctor that it would have that kind of design. There, but the knife itself is so fucking sharp.
It's ridiculous.
That you look at it and just go, of course you're going to get stabbed with this. Yeah. And then the Gabriel then fashions it into like
a weapon.
Doesn't really need to fashion it too much.
No, but like makes a handle and shit out of it.
Makes a handle, basically takes the snake thing off of it, just has it, and then uses that to stab people to death. Like one doctor in the face.
Yes. So Gabriel keeps the lady in the attic alive, but is communicating with her through the radio, which is very fucking cool. And throughout the film, actually right at the beginning again, it's talked about that Gabriel drinks electricity. It's like zapping in power, but that's also how he communicates is through TVs, radios, anything that he can sort of, like anything with a frequency, I guess.
Which again is why we aren't thinking that that Gabriel and Madison are the same person.
Because Madison can talk.
Yeah.
Gabriel cannot.
And often is seeing Gabriel do these.
And that's the visions she's talking about, because then she's like, with a great fucking scene, is going to do her washing.
I love the way that they put her in the visions.
Oh,
it's so fucking cool.
So Madison goes downstairs after this, is doing her washing, and then there's a scream, and inside the
glass door
of the washing machine is Dr. Weaver, the lady, who's screaming, "What are you doing in my house? What are you doing in my house?" And Madison's like, "What the fuck? I'm not in your house." Like, she's in her house.
Yeah.
we get the great scene from the trailer where she scurries back.
So and she's basically frozen in terror.
And the camera's panning around and the house changes around her. It goes up from this like black stalactite sort of like thing to we're in Dr. Weaver's house now. And we watch Gabriel step past Madison, and then you realize Dr. Weaver is looking at Gabriel. Yeah. What are you doing in my house?
So then Madison's kind of like, oh, I'm seeing
murder.
Seeing what Gabriel sees. Yeah.
And Gabriel then brutally murders Weaver.
So I will say he murders her. It's relatively off screen.
This one is,
like he stabs her. You see the blood spitting up, and then we get like the aftermath of.
We
her,
see the face,
which is fucked. But at this point, both death scenes have been relatively off screen.
Off screen, yeah.
So you're kind of thinking, oh,
where's this R rating coming from? Don't worry, it's coming up.
It's coming.
We get another thirsty Winnie scene, of course.
Shock.
And I will say this, we go to the police station after this because Madison's like, I wasn't there, but I saw.
And she's like, she's like, I'm aware that you think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And I would believe.
And the sister is there supporting
and she's
too.
Like, I would understand, like if I came to you, I would think I'm crazy
this
too.
Is fucking mental.
But I'm telling you. So then they have this picture of this little girl.
Yes.
Who was basically like related to all of the doctors.
Yes.
Not related, like
no, but she was a connection. Yeah.
So they were like, all right, let's find this little girl.
Who is this little girl? Yeah.
And can you age her up about 30 years?
Yeah.
And then naturally, the computer person, it looks exactly like
Madison. Who would have thought?
And then like I like how he's like, oh, but you already brought her in. Like, wasn't that the girl before? And you're like, oh my God.
I will say this as well. The aesthetic of the police station is fucking cool. It's in like this old church hall.
It's like grungy.
It's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like it's just a cool looking, like even if we didn't get the final scene in the police station, I would be like, it's noticeably cool.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. Yeah. But so we get the Madison reveal that the person, this girl that is connected to them is Madison. And then we see Dr. Fields get killed. So Dr. Fields is talking to someone about the death of Dr. Weaver.
And like, why would this happen?
Why is this happening?
Understand.
And because obviously they all have this connection, they're all kind of worried that he's kind of worried that he might be next.
Because two people have died that were related, that worked with Madison when she was younger.
So he's pulling out clothes and then he kind of gets the feeling that in his dark closet, there might be someone in there because he turns around and a window's open
and there's
rain and wind.
And we've also got footprints
in the room. Cool.
But if I saw that, I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
See you fucking
later. He just cleans it up and goes to bed.
Just see you later.
I'm like, no.
And that's a long scene of tension because it's like, okay, he's in the closet. No. Oh, okay. Is he back out of the window? No.
Is he under the bed?
The shot under the bed I fucking love. Yeah. But then because when he turns the lights off, the two legs are standing there, which is like just to the side, and I fucking love. Then Madison's in bed. Madison wakes up, rolls over, and who's next to her? Dr. Fields. So she's back in her fucking mind palace visions of...
She's in her further.
It ultimately is, isn't it? Hey, it's a further adjacent place.
Yeah.
Gabriel jumps on top of Dr. Fields and in the weird contortionist, like... backwards stabbing, but like brutally stabbing, like blood flying everywhere.
Stabs him in the neck, stabs him in the face, just like constant. And you just go,
screaming and fucking yelling. And it's just such an abnormal way to do it, but I fucking love it.
Yeah.
And then she describes, because Gabriel then looks at Madison and you see this disfigured, like, it almost looks like a worm. It's like this weird creature.
It looks like the thing that pops out of the chest in Alien.
It does. It fucking does. Yeah. So it's just an odd face. It blinks at Madison.
Which is Alien. Oh, right. Isn't the thing that pops out of the chest in Alien? You mean Alien? Yeah, that thing.
It's an alien. So so Gabriel's just got this gross looking face. Madison wakes up, shouts and screaming, and then goes to the police and's like, this is what I saw. This is who's killed. Well, sorry, she goes, there's another dead body. And they're like,
if you don't believe me, then lock me up. I'm telling you.
She's like, I can't tell you exactly where it is, but here's the neon sign I saw, blah, blah, blah. And they're like,
Silver Cup apartment.
Do you want us to knock on every door? And then they obviously get to the door and they find Dr. Fields stabbed to death. She describes Gabriel, and then the cop goes, "What do you want me to put an APB on Sloth from the Goonies?"
I was like,
I laughed at that. I laughed at that too, which I thought was funny.
See, that's the kind of joke that you let in. We don't need. We
it's
don't.
Just a one line.
It's one line, and and you look at it and just be like,
it
does kind of look like a thinner version of Sloth.
The police still think Madison's a part of this, but there's still no evidence that she's done it.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. So
given that she's like, I know where a dead body is.
Yeah. It's like, I found the body, and they're like, how?
Yeah.
But Madison vouches because she was with Sydney vouches for Madison because they were together all night. So Sydney and Madison.
Oh, but Sydney would say anything to save her sister.
They go traveling to find the mother. Sydney, the adopted mother.
So Sydney's actual mother.
Madison's adopted mother. In which Madison goes, "Who's Gabriel?" And the mum's like,
yeah, it's another
slow zoom in on the face. It's brilliant.
It's not as dramatic.
It kind of is.
It kind of is, but it's like, it's funny that has the same amount of weight as Sydney. I'm adopted. Yeah.
And then a videotape from Madison's 9th birthday is shown, in which McKenna Grace, who's a James Wan alum, I guess you could say, from the Conjuring 2. Conjuring 2. Conjuring 1, but also in Annabelle Creation.
And played young Brie Larson in Captain Marvel.
Oh, she did too,
Played young Margot Robbie in I, Tonya.
McKenna Grace is fantastic, actually. And she's in Gifted, which is a fucking brilliant movie.
Oh.
Creepy 9th birthday, they're doing the cake, and then she keeps looking to her side and goes
they
like...
mentioned a line that actually kind of broke my heart, where she was like, we invited your whole class, and she's like, yeah, no one wanted to come.
Everyone thought that I was a freak.
But she kind of says it like...
She kind of laughs with it now,
But I was also like...
That's
But then you watch the video and you'd be like, I wouldn't hang out with that.
Yeah, because they put the cake down, and then she turns, she's like, don't say that, Gabriel. Yeah. I don't want to do that. And you're like... What the fuck is going on?
And then they were like, oh, we thought it was your imaginary friend because you'd gone through the adoption process and everything. We thought this was your way of coping. And you're like, oh.
And then we see another video after that where she's on the play phone to Gabriel and goes, please don't hurt the baby, because obviously Sydney's mum is pregnant with Sydney. And it's just going, please don't hurt the baby. I'm like, for fuck's sake.
And you realize that like Gabriel has this jealousy.
Yes.
Like, I don't want there to be another child.
I want it just to be us.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's really unsettling when you
unsettling.
think about it.
So then we basically find out that, Gabriel is more real than we think.
Yes.
Is maybe not just a spirit.
Mm.
Then we get Kakoa is in his bathroom, shirtless, of course.
Didn't hate it.
But then the fantastic shot of him he walks into his bathroom because he hears a noise. The camera keeps panning around and we don't see anything behind Kakoa. But as the camera moves around to the mirror, Gabriel is behind him, comes down, attacks. They get into a tussle. Kakoa manages to shoot Gabriel and get away. But then we're watching Gabriel leap down the fire escape. And he's going like, what in the fuck is going on?
So then this brings validity to everything that
Madison has been telling him. Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I was just attacked by Gabriel.
Right.
It clearly wasn't you. So I now believe you.
Believe Madison now. Yeah. And they go to Madison. He goes to Madison's house with the cop and he's like, okay, I believe you. This is what I saw, blah, blah, blah. And then comes crashing through the roof. The railroad lady manages to find a way to cut her. The railroad lady. I can't speak. The railroad lady manages to cut herself free and she falls through the attic onto the floor. And then everyone's like, Madison, why have you been holding that lady hostage up in your attic? So you find out the attic torture chamber was Madison's house.
Also, again, another great reveal when she falls through.
Oh, yeah.
And then it cuts to Madison and she just does the screams, and then the 80s synth score comes in. It's just like, it's so
I fucking love it. I love when Madison at this point as well is like, I used to have a name for Gabriel. And she's like, the devil. It basically looks into the camera when she says it.
And you sort of, it's one of those things where you just go, Yeah, and
Yeah, it's like, we get it. It's evil.
yeah,
Okay.
I feel like Gabriel's kind of more creepy.
I like
than the
Gabriel
devil.
better than the devil.
Yeah.
So Madison's arrested and put into a holding cell at the fucking awesome police station before we get to the cool bit.
Yeah,
Before we get to the cool bit.
like once she goes into the cell, the film then goes, you know what? We've given you a lot of creepy shit.
Yeah.
We're about to fucking turn this up to 11.
Oh my God. I would even argue it goes to a 12 at this fucking point.
And this is when it also goes, if it wasn't R yet,
yeah.
it's R now.
It's R now.
It's R now.
So Sydney, they find out what
So we'll go. Sydney goes to
the hospital, the medical facility.
First of all, when she drives there,
Yeah.
she's driving along the road. It's this, this is a beautiful shot.
Oh, it's
like the road is like winding around,
and like the reveal of the
it's like
castle.
It's just like
face.
It's like beautiful forestry.
Yeah,
There's like this massive fucking ocean next to where she's driving. It's like somewhere where you see like James Bond driving.
Yeah, totally.
And then it pans up and there's like this fucking
massive castle fucking on the cliff face.
She drives there. And
because they discover through the trophy that Gabriel's been using that's the hospital. Yeah.
And she drives there and it's on a cliff face. And when she drives up, she parks so close to the cliff face. Like basically, if she got into the car and it remotely moved forward, she's off the cliff.
She's gone. See you later. But it looks cool.
But it looks cool. She gets out. She doesn't, she walks. She sees that there's like a tiny opening in her fence. She just goes
straight through it.
You're just walking through this dilapidated, like fucking.
When you know that there's someone out murdering people because of this place.
I don't think I would be going there, at least not alone.
But hey, it's that campy nature of the movie.
And you know what? Sydney wants to help her sister.
Absolutely.
Sydney will go to the fucking haunted place.
So Sydney goes investigating, finds a file.
Basement level. Goes down to the basement level.
Of course, because where else would it want to be in this movie?
Right.
Goes down, finds a box of old videotapes and stuff.
I love that in 2021, she goes home and they still have
a VCR.
VCR.
Well, that's because she opens a case file and it's the young Madison
McKenna Grace,
but with her real name, which I didn't write down for some reason, but her name before Madison, basically. Yeah. And Sydney takes all these back to her mum, and they're watching it.
They have a VCR.
They have the VCR ready to go, and they put the tape in, and the video is leading up to the "We must cut the cancer out."
Yeah, so everything that we saw at the beginning of the film of "We must cut out the cancer" before they were all just like brutally murdered.
Yeah.
Is now them talking about the fact that Madison has a tumor.
Yes, a malignant tumor.
So therefore, title's right there. And they talk about how she had a twin.
Yes.
And the twin...
A twin in utero.
So the twin wasn't fully developed.
It was...
it had lots of mumbo jumbo.
It's basically a parasitic twin.
Yeah.
They call it absorption in utero. Basically...
It was kind of... So it was essentially like feeding off of Madison.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily like a twin, more of a parasite.
Yeah, but it was a parasite that had like
legs,
its own functions.
Head.
And because
that is growing out of her back
and
because her head.
And because the parasite's brain is connected with Madison's brain. They can't just like cut it out.
They're like, it's not a conjoined twin.
So we get this.
They're like, if we cut it off fully, she dies.
So we get this incredible shot.
Oh my God.
So Madison's there just looking very stoic.
Yeah.
And the camera
pans around.
And you see
this
fucking
vile, little decrepit parasite.
Rib cage and hands and arms, just like little fucking T-Rex arms.
It's horrible. But then, because then you see Sydney and the mums reveal, and they're like, because not even the mum knew that because the mum's been told that
the mum was told the twin died.
The twin died at birth. Yeah, and that Madison hasn't remembered any of this.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we got to cut out the cancer. So we get an insane surgical scene
where they basically cut open Gabriel.
Yeah.
And they remove as much as possible.
Yeah.
And they're like, but because we can't entirely remove all of him.
brain.
We're just going to suppress him. So they cut her skull open and push
Gabriel into the back of her head.
and sew it up, and
that's it.
And then she didn't know anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
So then we realize, it was when the husband banged her head against it, and it basically woke Gabriel up.
And it woke Gabriel up, who then we find out.
So then we go to the police station. So this is sort of happening as we're seeing Madison like freak out in the jail cell. She's like, I don't belong here.
There's an eclectic group of women, so to say.
One of them is Zoe Bell. So when you see Zoe Bell, you're like, some stunt stuff
about to go down.
So Zoe Bell, incredible stunt worker, was the main stunt person for Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Had her own role in Death Proof.
Like big worked for Tarantino heaps. Had a role in Hateful Eight. So.
Yep. Was in a film called Raise, where incredibly violent. So when you see her, you're like, oh, okay,
It's fun, and it's that 80s cheesy nod where it's like
her, because she's got so Zoe Bell has like a mullet, and she's very like, oh, what are you doing? Like, she's like, what are you doing in here, princess?
They're all
stereotypical.
Like they're just pissing in buckets.
There's one girl who's got like an afro and she's wearing like 70s. Like she looks like she's out of the 70s.
It's great.
So they're all in there, and Madison's like, I don't belong here. Please let me out.
Yeah.
So then this is happening as we're seeing the reveal of what is in Madison's,
like the cancer that needs to be cut out. Yeah.
Then Madison then like just starts freaking the fuck out. Starts screaming, and basically this is when we see what actually like happens to
right?
her.
Yeah.
And Gabriel like then pushes himself out of the back
skull.
of her head. Her skull like rips open. Gabriel's head comes out, and then
Madison's eyes.
So then she just becomes
she loses control.
She's gone, and then we sort of see that what Madison thinks is like she's just sitting in the jail cell.
So she's still
conscious, but
astral projecting.
But Gabriel has like basically control of her body. So then she like breaks her arms.
So you watch
so that way
snaps
the legs back, and she then
goes to town,
like rips everybody apart, like rips the chick's neck out.
When she grabs the neck and then she like is throwing people up against the bars, like smushing their face against the bars,
like hard out. Like
when she grabs Zoe Bell
with puts her fingers in her eyes.
But then also the cop's gonna just try and shoot, so she turns Zoe Bell around and runs. Zoe Bell's getting shot in the back.
Yeah.
Hits her against, but then the cop, of course, because it's a campy 80s film, has his hand inside the bars, pulled through, smacked, keys pulled through. So Gabriel.
So this is Gabriel. Gabriel is. We realize this whole time, Madison
has physically been there,
but
it's under the control of Gabriel,
because Gabriel like has more of a control of her now.
Yes,
he's then been putting her in like essentially like a comatose.
Yeah,
like basically he's like you've been asleep in bed.
Yeah, you've been you've suppressed me all these years.
So I've made you think you've been asleep in bed. What your body has actually been doing.
Oh God,
this.
Yeah. So
it is a fucking incredible reveal.
It's an amazing reveal.
Because it also just keeps like going. You're just
it is an action-packed last 20 minutes, and it is violent. It is bone snapping, blood flying everywhere, people getting massacred violent, and it is so much fun because in classic James Wan fashion, he loves using like the high angle wide lens that goes like around the room. So Gabriel is like fucking parkouring, flipping everywhere, ripping cops' head, like, because then obviously all the police come in after she's killed every woman in that holding
Which is
cell.
then when you realize
20 women.
So then it's like Gabriel then sort of as Madison then realizes, so she wakes up and she's in the prison cell and just looks around and just sees all of the dead cops. So she's like, holy shit, like, you know.
Yeah.
And we also then get the incredible fight sequence in the police station.
Which is outstanding. Like it is genuinely phenomenal. Like flipping around, killing people,
throwing
ripping off
chairs at people. I love
ripping off arms and hitting people, like beating them to death with their own arm. It's fucking amazing. And then like the lady detective comes in with a shotgun, trying to like shoot the fuck. I love the shot where she shoots the shotgun into the desk and the camera goes through
the hole. Cool. Yeah.
So there is just, and like it is insane. Like compared to like the intensity that has come before it, this is a jump.
Oh, the film just goes now that like
we've revealed everything.
Now that we're all in on this,
you are all fucking in.
Yeah.
And it is outstanding. It is so much fun. Like
Yeah.
it is so enjoyable, even though it's fucked.
Oh yeah.
And now you know the whole movie is like pushed towards this point. You're like, I'm gonna let this happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let this fun.
Oh, like
fucking happen.
if you haven't surrendered to it by now,
Yeah.
then like you probably shouldn't be watching it.
So then Gabriel escapes the police station after killing everyone and goes to the hospital to see the mother.
Yeah.
The biological mother. Because
like he's always
he's angry for her giving them up.
Yeah.
For him to get suppressed the way he's been suppressed.
Yeah.
Then we get this beautiful, I mean, in the terms of this film, quite a sweet monologue, but it's also like very campy, where the mother's like, I want you to forgive me. Like I was young. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like and you know,
I should have loved.
I should have loved you, blah, blah,
shit, yeah.
which gives Madison a chance to confront Gabriel within their mind. And so they're in this dark room. Gabriel's standing there. Madison's standing there and basically uses the power of her mind.
It's super camp.
To overcome Gabriel and suppress him back to where he was.
So we also do briefly get like Sydney is she's attacked.
Yes, that's right.
Like the hospital, she's like the hospital bed is flipped onto her.
Yeah.
And then she has a nice little exposition and basically says like the reason that you've had so many miscarriages is because
oh, that's right.
And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's right. Because it's not something that I actually had thought of.
No.
And she's like, the reason you're having so many miscarriages is she's like, it's because Gabriel has been like
feeding on them to survive.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's fucked.
That's fucked. That is proper fucked.
And he then like shoots Sydney in the head.
That's right.
And so you sort of think, you know what? I'm not putting it past James Wan to give us an unhappy ending because he shoots the sister. Yeah. But then you realize that Madison is fighting back, and then she has put Gabriel in a state where he believes what he's
seeing is real.
Where she goes, no, so she stopped him from shooting Sydney, and she's like, I am now strong enough.
Yeah.
She's like, because she's like, your body strength has been my body strength.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
She's like, so now I'm just strong enough to suppress you.
Up in the mind.
Then we get an incredibly unsubtle shot of a prison.
Yes, yeah.
And Gabriel in there, like, you can't stop me forever. And then this is like, this
like
is just
fades away into darkness.
But it's also just like
obscurity.
it's one of like the cheesiest things. I love it. How Madison's like stands there at the door and she's like, I know that you won't be in here forever, but when you come back, I'll be ready. I'll be ready. And closes the door and it's like, no,
which I love. It's
and then you see like her head like
close back up, and you're like, oh, okay.
And then then Sydney, like she hugs Sydney, and then like I love it pans away and you see the mum like looking at them,
the mum's looking at them,
and she goes, and then lies in the bed.
Then in classic James Wanisms, the camera pulls back far enough to have a little lamp next to. Well, you don't because it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But you hear a.
So you realize
he's feeding off the electricity.
So you're like, all right, so Gabriel's
not gone
still
just
around.
yet.
But in terms of endings, it's one of the happier.
It's a happier James Wan ending.
Yeah.
Even just talking about Malignant now, I'm like, this is a great movie.
It's so much fun.
Criminally underwatched, criminally maligned by audiences.
Yeah.
It is weird, but I like just try and watch it again.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it the first time, watch it again. And then be like, oh, I see what they were doing.
Like, watch it knowing it's meant to be bad.
It's intentionally campy.
Yeah.
It's an intentional throwback to like cheesy 80s horror.
Yeah.
Just with like a good dose of modern James Wan thrown in there. Because he is a fantastic director. Like, we didn't really touch on it. We touched more on the story. Like, visually, it's still a great movie. Like, some of the scares are great. The way he uses the camera. Like, he had a lot of care making this film, and I think it's a perfect amalgamation of all his work up till this point. He's got the action stuff in there for the end.
Yeah.
The body horror and stuff, like the gore is there from Saw, and then the creepy supernatural, because there is a lot of tension build up in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
He loves those wide shots where you don't know where you're supposed to be looking in the frame. Like it is a perfect blend of all of his work in one film. It's brilliant.
It's so much fun.
Love Malignant. That's James Wan.
That's James Wan.
That's James Wan for M3GAN.
For M3GAN.
So, yes, the movie's not out yet in Australia. We're seeing it the night before its release here. But we're both excited for it. Now, I haven't watched the trailer.
Right.
You have?
I have.
I know of this dancing scene, apparently. I haven't seen too much about it, but I'm aware of it. But I'm intrigued enough as it is. I like Blumhouse movies. I liked the new Child's Play
I did too.
I really did like it.
And I think we also sort of, because we know that James Wan is good at camp.
Yeah.
I think I don't see people going into M3GAN thinking this will be like, oh my God, this will be terrifying. I'm like, it's the trailer itself is like, this is camp.
Camp as fuck.
Like this little doll girl who's like sassy and talking back, and then the dance. Like so I'm excited.
Intrigued.
I'm excited just to I don't expect this to be scary.
No, the director did come out recently and be
it was weird.
R-rated
it was
and violent.
R-rated and gory, and then
now it's PG-13 and scary.
So I'm like,
we'll see what happens.
But either way, I'm excited just because it'll be, if nothing else, I think it'll be like a lot of fun.
I think so too. Yeah. So we will definitely give you an update on M3GAN when we see it. And that is the first episode of 2023 done and dusted. So now we're done with the first one. Maybe we should talk about what we're doing next, Pete, for our February episode. And I've got a little hint for you, Pete.
Tell me a hint.
Now, that made no sense at all when it came out of my mouth. That was supposed to be Pony by Genuine.
Oh, yeah.
I think for the watchers at home, they'll watch me doing my little chair thrust.
No, it's more like womp, womp,
okay,
womp,
well, maybe
womp,
you should have fucking done it then, Pete.
Womp, womp, womp. But yes, because if you're horny, let's do it. Ride it.
My pony.
And if there's someone's pony I'd love to ride, it's Charming Potatoes.
Charming Potato as he comes back.
As Channing Tatum.
As he comes back for the third and final installment.
The final tease.
Magic Mike's Last Dance. So now it's getting a cinema release because it was initially before the HBO Max kerfuffle. It was supposed to be HBO Max only.
And then they were like, nah.
We're making money on these now.
And we're like, you know what?
Put it in cinemas.
Streaming, not always the way to go now.
Not always the way to go. So for the cinema release of Magic Mike's Last Dance, Pete and I will be going back and watching Magic Mike and Magic Mike XXL, which I will say right now before we crack into them, I think is one of the best bro trip comedies ever made. I genuinely think Magic Mike XXL is a fantastic movie. I can't wait to rewatch it.
I'm excited to rewatch them. It's been a while that
I actually rewatched Magic Mike XXL last year with Rhiannon, and I was like, it's fucking good. I'm excited to watch it again for the show.
I actually haven't watched it since I saw it in the cinemas.
Oh, I'm excited then. I think you're going to have a lot of fun.
I saw it in the cinemas. I was in Sydney for the premiere with Channing and
Charming Potato.
Joe
Magliano.
God, he's
I can imagine.
In real life.
I can imagine.
So I went and saw it literally I think it was like a Sunday night in Sydney, and then I flew back and saw it the Monday
Brisbane
night
screening.
Brisbane.
Yeah.
So I saw them back to back. But yeah, I bought it on Blu-ray and just
I might buy them. I don't think I own them. I don't think so.
Nicholas.
No, I don't.
I own both.
So I might get them.
Yeah,
because I think they're worth watching. But we're excited to break down those two movies for that. And be on the watch out on our Instagrams and our Twitter at NixFlixFix, at RatedPDG on both social media platforms. We'll be putting up the question, what is your go-to stripper song?
And it can't be Pony by Genuine.
Pony's taken.
It's taken.
We want your thoughts outside of Pony. Pony's taken. What song, if someone said you got to do a striptease, would you want to dance? Yeah. What would you want to striptease to? So keep an eye out for that question when it pops up in our social medias. But I'm excited for 2023. As we said in the 2022 episode, we're excited for this year.
We're excited for this year.
We got a big old year.
And I'm just going to...
We're on video now.
I'm just going to quickly plug, if you would like to win tickets to M3GAN, go to the aureview.com and we are doing a competition where you answer what toy would you least like to see come to life. And whatever the best answers are, I will be giving away
give my answer
5
now.
tickets. What?
Because I actually, back in my screenwriting days, when I was an impressionable 17-year-old, wrote a found footage horror film about a A Japanese body pillow that comes to life. So, quick rundown of this premise.
What was it
called?
called?
I can't remember what I called it. I've got the script somewhere. I got to find it. But it's a group of friends who buy a Japanese body pillow as a prank for their friend. And like the parents open it up and have to have like the conversation and be like, you know, like, son, what is this? And it was like a really sexually explicit pillow. And then because they left cameras in the house for the prank, they wake up the next morning, look at the footage, and the family and the kid are dead. So they go back to the house and they find out that the pillow has come to life.
That's awesome.
Maybe I have to revisit this script. I've got a patent on that. Any of you fuckers out there, any producers out there, that's mine. I own the copyright to that story.
I'm just gonna since we're on this topic I had this great idea, and you know what? Again, if someone fucking steals it, my idea was a group of friends. Just, you know, all like bros and all that sort of shit. And they say like to one of them, they get into a fight and basically they say like, oh, you're dead to us.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie, you believe that this guy is then dead because...
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But then it's revealed at the end of the day, they're all just like, no. So he goes to a party. No one acts like he goes about his life and no one acts like he's there. Whenever he's with his friends, he's like, why can't anybody see me?
That's fucking cool.
And then it's like the whole movie he thinks he's dead. He tries to figure out why. And then at the very, very end, they all just stand there and they all just like look at him and they're just like, and then it just ends because they're just like, we finally reveal that.
Oh my God.
And I was like, you know what?
Hey,
that's a good idea.
Maybe a big year.
You could do that in like in a lockdown setting.
Oh my God.
Because that way you couldn't leave the house.
You absolutely fucking could. Oh. Looks like Pete and I are going to have a real busy year.
Yeah, maybe. Year. On top of everything else that we've got.
In our 2023 recaps, like Pete and I wrote and produced 2 feature films.
Yeah. A Japanese body pillow horror movie and I don't know what mine would be. But I wrote a horror movie as a teenager.
I remember, I know we've spoken about this. We briefly touched about it on the Scream episode.
We did, yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe that will have to make a reappearance.
I never know.
So, on that note, thank you for listening to this episode. Be on the lookout for the next episode. Netflix Fix Instagram and Twitter, novastreamnetwork.com for all my reviews and interviews, and Pop Culture Essentials podcast coming back very soon after a brief New Year's Christmas hiatus.
Yes.
Nova Stream Network's podcast with our friend Alistair Lee.
So I will be on the Pop Culture Essentials podcast as well.
Yes, you will.
And
as a co-host.
Yes. Rated PDG for Instagram and Twitter. And the aureview.com for all of my interviews and reviews. And we don't have anything concrete for the year yet, but
there's things
if 2022 was an indication,
2023 is going to be all right.
2023 is going to be a banger year.
Some things in the pipeline.
There's some big
confirmations waiting to be confirmed.
Yes, and let's just say we won't be quiet if this confirmation comes through.
Oh fuck no, absolutely not. You will be hearing about it on our socials. Follow the podcast, download the episodes. Your support means a lot. And now on the YouTubes, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the podcast.
Like and subscribe. We'd very much appreciate it.
And if you like the video format, let us know.
Yeah, and if you don't, well, fuck all of you.
Well, tough shit.
Yeah.
But until the next episode, bye!